What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome into NYJ today. Don't worry, James, you're here. I got you. How you doing, everybody? We got James from Jets X Factor. I got Mr. Paul Esden Jr. from Heavy.com. Also got his own YouTube channel. How you doing, Paul? We'll talk to you first.
Well, I'm fantastic, and I've got royalty here, NYJ today, the Jets X Factor family. This is beautiful, beautiful.
Yes, good to have you on. And you got plenty of sleep last night, right? You're not too tired to do this. You got a girl at home keeping you up at night, probably.
What sleep? I don't know. What sleep?
Yep, rare to come by. I got a couple people in the chat, and we'll definitely get to you guys in just a minute. James, I already know how you're doing, baby. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, guys.
Good.
Paul, congratulations on the
Thank
new
you.
addition to the family. That's huge. So congratulations to you and your family, and it's nice to meet you. We've never formally met before, but it's good to be here. So I'm doing pretty well.
All right, we got a lot of people in here. Straight 100 says congrats to you, Boy Green. So congrats on
Appreciate
her. Yeah, it's awesome, man. It is a life changer, and it's just absolute blessing. Rick Fisher's here. How you doing, my man? Good to see you. Grant Rude says, Paul, sleep is that thing that you won't know for another 4 months.
Excellent. Looking
And
forward.
actually, I would argue you might not know it for a couple of years. Our daughter, she'll get up sometimes in the middle of the night. She comes, basically just karate kicks the door down. And she's like, come fix the dolls in my bed. So that's pleasant at 3 a.m. So you never know. We'll see. Hopefully you don't have to deal with that. We're gonna break James. We're gonna mess with him a little bit. So if you hadn't seen, we got 64KJ here, and 64KJ. You wanna. I mean, you don't have to talk about this. Like, we're not gonna gloat, but maybe just tell the story a little bit because this is pretty cool.
Yeah, no. So it's actually my wife, which I tried to kind of give her credit for at a certain point. But we were just going so crazy that it actually happened that I was like, holy crap, I feel like I have to tell everybody. And this marriage thing is 50-50, right?
Yeah.
But no, so how it happened was she kind of just came up to me probably about 7 to 8 minutes or so before the Super Bowl started. And she's like, hey, I want to do something that has wild shot odds. If we lose the $100, we lose the $100. But what if it happens? And I was like, I had a couple beers at this point in time, and I was like, you know what? Go for it. And she showed me what she picked, and the last piece was, hey, do I go over or under 5.5 touchdowns? And I said, well, if you go the under route, you're probably going to win a whole heck of a lot more money because all those touchdowns that you picked, there can't be anything that happens after that. So if those touchdowns happen, you have to hope that's basically it. And she's like, the better odds this way. So I was like, all right. So she put it in. And then when T. Higgins scored that touchdown at the start of the second half, that's when it got really real.
Yes.
And it wound up hitting at the end there. And we couldn't believe it. I put it on Twitter, and it just completely blew up.
Yeah, it's insane and it's awesome. I read some of the quote tweets on when you tweeted it out,
Yeah.
and people are so funny. They're like, "This isn't real. This didn't happen." It's so ridiculous. But anyway, we are way off topic. Congrats to you, of course. It's
Thanks,
pretty freaking awesome, man. It's crazy, but so cool for you guys. Awesome way to start your marriage, and again, I had said on Twitter, man, if you plan to start a family, like, holy cow, what a great way to kick it off. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
it is. All
By the
right.
way, what's the first purchase with $64,000 and change?
So I'll let you in on a little secret here. When you win that amount of money, if it's over a certain amount, FanDuel takes the taxes off the top. So we wound up getting hit with a pretty large tax bill. So the final amount of the distribution wound up being 42.7.
Oh man, no, that's crazy.
So I was
But
like, poof, the federal and the state taxes, they really hit you on that. So for now, it's going to be some student loan cushion for us.
yeah, that's like the best. Like, take away some of the bills that you owe. Absolutely.
Right.
Peter, thanks for checking in. Carasquillo, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. He says, Jets family, how we doing? Cran Root says, ouch, America. Let's let's get. This is one of our Canadian followers here. He's from Canada, so he's gonna stick a little bit at us with the America there. Let's get to the first topic. Nope, that's not the first topic. 64KJ, that's what I'm calling you from now on, by the way. I threw this on Twitter. By the way, I do apologize, Paul. You're gonna be blasted over for these mailbags and for these tweets. I put
That's
this
okay.
on Twitter I think last night, and it kind of got hit pretty hard. And I just wanted to kind of throw this out there as like a first topic for the night. It's not a mailbag necessarily because it's my tweet, but if the Jets traded back, how would you feel about landing somebody like Olave? We'll start with you, Paul. You're the guest tonight. Why don't you talk a little bit about it? You could hate it if you don't like it. I won't be offended. I think some people are funny when they respond to things like that. They think that that's like the only thing I want to happen on draft night. So what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, it's perfect timing. Speaking of shameless self-promotion, putting yourself in your own mailbag, very nice move. Classy move there. But I'll do the same thing here. Like, I just recorded every Monday on my YouTube channel, I do a mock draft Monday. It's a draft guest or an insider like Connor Hughes from The Athletic or someone. It's someone different every Monday. And we basically talk whatever's the latest happening with the Jets, right? We had the Calvin Ridley story a couple of weeks ago or whatever the rumors are. And then they're forced to answer, and do a mock draft at the end. And my guest, I recorded today for Monday's show, so it's kind of a sneak peek for Monday. We broke down all the wide receivers, the top 5 wide receivers of the draft, and Chris Olave, of course, came up. And the thing that I'm kind of confused by is, like, I was confounded when he chose to go back to school last year. I was like, wow, okay.
Surprising, yeah.
All right. He makes, that was a surprising decision for me. So all he does is go back to school and put up all these video game numbers, and now no one's talking about him anymore, and it's just weird. I can't really rationalize it. So when my guest Jacob Infanti, a draft analyst from the Draft Wire, joined me and kind of like retold the story of like Chris Olave, it just like was like a refresh button, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't be too mad if we ended up with Chris Olave, basically. I missed the tweet, actually, from you, so this is fresh seeing it. If you can trade back from 10, and again, I think the world is your oyster, whether it's as far back as Pittsburgh, as they're moving up for a quarterback, if you're buying that hype, or even just a handful of spots and still get Olave. I think, quite frankly, this is a draft that does not have a consensus number 1 wide receiver. I've been saying it for weeks and months. It's a flavor draft. Depending on what you're looking for, you can find it. And really, it's going to depend on who picks the wide receiver first. It's not just going to be, clearly 1A went off the board, so now it'll be 1B, 1C, 1D, etc. It's just going to be the flavor. If one guy's looking for that big, freaky Drake London, Brandon Marshallish guy, okay, he's going to be the guy. If you're looking for that kind of speedy, I've heard them compare Calvin Ridley to Garrett Wilson, whatever your flavor is, that's going to be the guy that goes off the board. So a long story short, to answer the question, I would be enthralled to land Chris Olave plus whatever future assets or present assets that would include. I just think there's a lot of really good wide receivers, and I've been drooling over the potential fits, whether it's Treylon Burks, whether it's Olave, whether it's Wilson, whether it's Drake London or whoever, or Jameson Williams if you trade back even further. Like, I just think there's a lot of talent there, and I'd be thrilled, quite frankly, with the fit.
Yeah, and I thought that it was a pretty interesting idea, and a lot of people did like the idea. There were a lot of people that had a positive response to it, but then there's, of course, the people that are like, no way, I like this guy better. And it's like you said, it's a very much a flavor group of wide receivers. Whatever your preference is, that's going to be your guy to beat the drum for. I feel like I tried my best to stay in the middle in most things, and I feel like there's a lot of cases that could be made for all of these guys. James, what are your thoughts on that idea of sliding back and maybe possibly landing Olave in that move?
Yeah, well, for one, I like the idea of sliding back because I think there are plenty of needs to address, and one of the ways to address that is to accumulate more assets. And if there's a team willing, obviously the further back you trade, you look at what the Giants did last year with the Chicago Bears. They went from 11 to 20, and they wound up with a 2023 first round pick. And so I've kind of always gone back to that idea of when you go to trade back, the assets to me don't have to be all in 2022. We can accumulate more in further years. And specifically for Chris Olave, and Paul kind of nailed it on the head in terms of with this class, it is flavor, right? You have your route runner in Garrett Wilson. You have your center on the basketball court in Drake London. You have the Traylon Burks, who's kind of the specimen, right? The Julio Jones type of figure where the size, the speed combination is super intriguing. And then a guy like Chris Olave is getting forgotten about. That's a fact. And I'm kind of surprised about it also, only because if you turn the tape on and you watch Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave is right there in front of you. And he puts up the numbers as well. He's a big time separator in terms of his speed. He's very smooth when you watch him. He's nothing, physically, daunting to deal with, but ultimately he gets it done. And so, yeah, I would be happy with that pick if they were to do that, only because I think they need to find the Jets flavor needs to be separation. Who's able to create that separation, and a guy like Chris Olave can definitely do that.
Okay, cool. I was kind of hoping somebody would disagree with me, but nope. Grant Rood, he says George Pickens is also being forgotten about.
True.
I feel like it's a pretty decent wide receiver class. It's maybe not top heavy, but it's a decent little group there of wide receivers. Okay, cool. Selfishly, like you said, Paul, I wanted to throw that one out there. There's a lot of people in the chat, so I'll go ahead and I'll throw a couple here. Although there are questions about some of these other wide receivers too. So Grant Rood says, panel, we trade back with Pittsburgh at, to 20. Olave and JMO are there. Who are you taking? James, you're going JMO there, right?
I would love to. I really would. I understand the risk factor in it though, right? Is because the injury gauntlet that we went through this past year, and it seems like we've kind of gone through for a while now, it almost feels like you have to go surefire. And there's nothing that's surefire, but at least you would know that you're dealing with a healthy player. If Jamison Williams did not tear his ACL, he would have been the first wide receiver on my ranking there. And I do think modern medicine, these guys do come back, and they a lot quicker anyway. I would just have a very hard time taking the risk at 20. I think I would wind up going with Olave if those are my options.
I'm proud of you. Very good job. He's an Alabama fan. What do you think, Paul?
That was tough.
Yeah, I can smell it from here. It's disgusting. Anyway, I would go Olave. It's basically how I envision it. Again, it all depends on value, but in particular, to answer the specific question, it's going to like 20. Like, that's not enough for me. If Jameson is there around, 35, 38, and he shouldn't be for all intents and purposes, people should keep the long-term range in mind, and that's how you should draft. And again, depending on where you are is your comfortability level. The Chiefs could take Jameson Williams, go YOLO, and then they can figure it out in the future. But like, there are some teams that can't afford to wait. They're like, we need things right now. We can't afford to even risk that, have the risk factor. So for me, James at 20 would still be too rich. I'd go Olave. But again, if he's there at 35, 38, again, he shouldn't be. Then I start going, okay, that's where you can mitigate risk when you get deeper.
Yeah, that second round would be real enticing. If we didn't take one in the first round, I would be definitely in favor of that move for sure. Vern, he says one of these wide receivers is going to fall to the second round. I think that's definitely for sure fair to say. One of them might fall to that early first round. We've seen it before. T. Higgins was a guy that a lot of people talked about maybe being a late first round pick, and he fell to the early second for the Bengals.
Elijah Moore?
Yeah, Elijah Moore. There's a whole
Right.
There's a ton of examples. Every draft, there's always somebody that falls to the early second round. So Grant Rood, he agrees with you. He's got that Bama stink. That stanky stank. We got a couple of questions here. I'll throw this one in here. It's from Peter. Oh, it's a little large. Let me tone that down.
That's a book.
Yeah, it sure is. He says, I know we need an edge, but I still prefer to go tackle at number 4. But how would you guys feel about trading the number 10 pick and a few more picks, like a third and a fourth, for Brian Burns? I don't know if Brian Burns is available. I guess to answer your question quickly, would you do it? Number 10 and a third and a fourth. Paul, you can go first.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know Brian Burns was available. That's great to hear. God, and it's such a cop out to say, well, who's on the board at 10? Because things happen, and again, I think what a lot happens in the draft is the lead up. And I know a lot of people make fun of the movie Draft Day. I watch it every year on Draft Day. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it. But like one of the things in there for all the draft geeks out there is that's what's happening in the week that's leading up to the draft. You're having conversations to set up, if our guy is at certain pick, then we will make the deal. So the framework's there. And then once you're at 10, they're like, wow, Stingley, Hamilton, whoever is on the board, then the other teams, execute the rest of the deal and they figure out the final pieces here. So again, depending on who's on the board at 10, I'd be intrigued. Brian Burns is such an exceptional player. I loved him coming out of the draft a couple of years ago, super talented, and you need guys that can help out right now. So, I don't know the answer to who would be on the board, but I'd be willing to make the deal.
Oh, yeah, I would be willing to make the deal as well. Again, I don't think he's available. I don't think they would do that trade. This is a pretty explosive pass rusher. James, would you pull the trigger?
Yes.
Yeah. Good job.
Deep, man, deep.
Peter, I will say, we're maybe being a little bit, facetious here. I think you have your mind in the right place. You want to upgrade the pass rush. And if that were to present itself, even if it weren't necessarily Brian Burns, if we can go get a proven pass rusher, definitely there's nothing that wouldn't be on the table in regards to that, I think. All right, cool. That was one question. And then there was another one here. Let me see if I can get it up here. Jared Helmuth, thanks for coming back. He's been coming the last couple of streams. And he says, if the Jets bring back LDT and they extend Fant, do you still take, or would you still consider taking Ekwonu at 4 if Neal, Hutch, and Tibbs are all gone? I like the specifics on the question, which is good. James, we bring back LDT to potentially be the starting right guard. We extended Fant to probably be at least the short term, like couple of years, answer to the left tackle spot. Mekhi Becton has not fallen off the face of the earth yet. So what are you thinking? Would you do it?
Yeah, I would definitely still consider him at 4, only because of the future, right? You're thinking long term here. If we bring back LDT, what's that deal look like? Is it a 1-year deal that we're bringing him back for? And also, right, you don't want to just, because you bring an LDT back for, I don't know, 1 year, a couple million, whatever it is, you don't want to prevent that from allowing you to add potentially elite long-term players. And so if you take Ekwonu at 4, right, does he win that right guard spot potentially, and beat the LDT? You're not financially kind of tied to him. And then if Fant goes, can you move Ekwonu to right tackle in the year after that? So you have flexibility there where that's a player who can slide into the guard spot right away and then potentially take over at a tackle spot. And hopefully be the bookend to Mekhi Becton, who we hope comes back healthy. So I wouldn't take the player off the table at 4, especially if those 3 players go 1, 2, and 3, because then you're looking at, okay, what else are we potentially looking to add at that point in time? And the offensive line can never be a discussion that is thrown in the trash.
Very good. Boy Green, you're getting some more love from some of the people here. By the way, guys, if you're not, check out Mr. Boy Green, Mr. Paul Esden Jr. He's on Twitter. I included his Twitter handle. I also included his website, heavy.com. He writes a bunch of articles. Check those out. And I meant to, and I'm going to put your YouTube link as well. So check his channel out, guys, Boy Green. And if you have not hit the like button on this stream, I would ask you to do that right now. Paul, would you do that move? Would you still consider drafting Ekwonu or an offensive lineman at 4 in that scenario?
To keep the draft day theme going that no one asked for, on my card in my pocket says Kayvon Thibodeau, no matter what. So he's my number 1 guy. that I want to walk away with. Now, if he's off the board, then I'm a BPA kind of guy. So whether that's Icky, Neal, or obviously if Hutchinson was somehow on the board, but in this scenario where the offensive line's still on the board and this scenario, first off, how long is the Fant contract extension for? That's a question to me. Mm-hmm. But even still, no matter what, hell yes, I'm drafting Icky without a second goddamn thought. And here's the thing, man. What's wrong with depth? Okay, bring LDT back. Okay, he loses to Icky. Now we got some depth. Nothing wrong with that. And whatever happens with the tackles. Now, I love Mekhi Becton. The first year, he missed a bunch of games. He even missed more games than the analytics say because there was games that he started and then left shortly after starting. So he got the notch on, Pro Football Reference for starting and playing in the game. You're like, oh, okay, not so bad. But really, when you really look deep on the snaps missed, he missed a ton in year one. And year two, unfortunate scenario. Anyone could have been rolled into like he did, but he misses the entire year. So I don't know what's going to happen to Mekhi Becton. So the I don't know isn't good enough for Zach Wilson. You need as much protection as possible, and that is with Icky. And then you play the best five because if Mekhi Becton, again, this year he's on the team no matter what. The financials make absolutely no sense in any circumstance, so you can move on because of that. So with that being the case, you have to just hope for the best, expect the worst. That's always got to be the mentality. For me, easy. I'm running that pick up to the podium. I'm taking BPA, and that would be, in this case, I believe Icky is the available offensive lineman with Neal number one. So 100%. 100%.
Cool. All right, I would agree. I'm not going to add anything on there. You guys hit it pretty good. Do want to go backwards here for just a hot second because Peter wanted to clarify. He said that he's going into the final year of his contract, and they did not pick up his fifth-year option. So I think that's why he had thrown that question in there, and that's fine. No worries, Peter. We're not judging you. Let's see. This is a question from the other one, and the other one was lavishing me with some of the nicest comments I've ever gotten on YouTube ever. He was really being quite nice the other night. I really do wanted to thank you for that. It really made my day. So he has a question for us. He says, "What's your opinion on JD being frugal the past two free agencies? Will he be like that again this year? Is he Chris Ballard of the Colts 2.0? I'll answer this one and then we'll move on. We don't have to spend too much time on this one unless you guys have something you really want to say. He spent a good amount of money in last offseason. I think that because of the injury to Carl Lawson, it kind of gets overlooked a little bit that he didn't play, and we spent a good amount of money on Carl Lawson, and the same could be said for Corey Davis as well. We spent a good chunk of change on him. We pretty much used all of the cap space that we had last offseason, too. That's the other thing that you have to look at. And I think that's always going to be the case. JD's going to be a balanced approach in pretty much everything that he does. And I think that he's never going to be wildly aggressive in free agency, but I don't want to say that he's going to be cautious in free agency, but I think it's going to be more of the same. I think it's going to be potentially similar to last offseason, maybe a little bit less. Anybody want to comment on that one? Feel free to do so.
Yeah, I'll jump in to say that, people have called me cheap in my day life, but I prefer the term selective. That's how Joe Douglas is going to be. I hear the term frugal thrown around. 3 years, $45 million for Carl Lawson wasn't frugal. Corey Davis, while I thought it was a reasonable deal for what he was in terms of value, sometimes you overpay for guys, and for Itzy, he was the 3 years, $37 million and change, whatever that was. That wasn't entirely frugal. I think he got kind of cast this label, and I think it's somewhat unfair when you look at what he's been able to do. But I don't think he's as reckless as $85 million to C.J. Mosley or $55 million to Le'Veon Bell. But, I think he's selective, and that's the right way to be.
Anything you want to add, James, or are you good?
Yeah, no, I think we can move on there. I think we see some signings this offseason, but yeah, sorry, now I'm talking more than I said I would, but I think also that kind of that label too kind of comes from right, the letting Robbie Anderson walk out the door to instead sign Brashad Perriman for the lesser amount, and it didn't turn out, to work out, for us with Brashad Perriman. But yeah, last offseason he showed a little bit more cash, and I think they're kind of ready to start surrounding this team with a little bit more talent and go forward. Not to be reckless, but do it a little bit more the right way and build through the draft, but add some proven talent to the team.
And I would
Yeah.
just jump
Oh,
in to
go ahead.
say
Go for it.
that, no, just real quick to James's point, like, so people berate him for the Robbie Anderson, Brashad Perriman thing, and that obviously didn't work out. But Jack Conklin to George Fant, that was spectacular. And you got him for obviously slice the price. So, again, you can suck and also it can work out. That's just kind of the nature of the beast.
All right. Fair enough. Zane Game, thank you for the nice comment there. And I do think that it's fair to have a little bit more of an expectation for him to spend some more money this offseason. If he goes out there and he's bargain shopping the whole time, I think that would be disappointing and concerning. I'm really just looking for more of the same from last offseason. Add a couple of guys that you really feel good about, and then go ahead and fill out the roster, fill out some of those needs. I think that's the way to go about it. All right, cool. We have not hit a single actual mailbag, so let's do that, and then we'll get to our topics for tonight. Here is the first one, and this one's from Grant Rude. If you didn't know, guys, you can submit a mailbag on Twitter. I put out a tweet a couple of times a week asking for your mailbags, and then you can also do it on the YouTube community channel, on my channel in the community tab. I will put a message on there for your mailbag. So if you have any burning questions, feel free to do those. I just be on the lookout for them. Here is Grant's, and it's a little bit long, but basically he's asking for us to put the top 3 tight ends in this draft class and try to match them up with kind of like a ceiling and a floor for some of these tight ends. And he says, are they, greater than, less than Kelsey, greater than, less than Kittle, greater than, less than Waller, like their potential, I guess, is what he's getting at here. So who wants that one first? That's a pretty big one, but you can just talk about a couple of tight ends. It doesn't have to necessarily be 3.
Wow. James? I will say, wow, what a graph. What a graph. That's phenomenal. And first off, submit more questions so you can cover my face. I appreciate that.
I do apologize.
I'm just kidding. But I'll go with what smarter people than me said. And basically, we brought up some of these tight end comparisons because everyone loves pro player comparisons. It tries to give you some sort of paint the picture of what the player can be in the NFL. And Russell Brown, national scout for Cover One, his ceiling for Trey McBride, and this should send Jet fans into craziness of throwing likes all over the video and everything else. He compared him to Travis Kelce. And I was like, wow. So to hear anyone in that same breath is wow. And I've had other draft analysts, the one that will release on Monday, Jacob Infante, he said he doesn't see any tight end worthy of taking at 35 or 38 for the Jets in the second round. I mean, you're getting quite stark opposite ends of the spectrum, and that kind of speaks to the class itself because no one is a consensus first round guy. There's no Kyle Pitts in this class. So I feel like, to me, just to try to answer the monster question in the way that I can, Russell Brown thinks he's Travis Kelce. Another guy doesn't think he's even worthy of top of the second round. So take that for what you will. James,
why don't you go? Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, so I think obviously it's okay. You have Trey McBride up there. He's kind of the sweetheart of the class for the Jets fans, at least there. A guy like Jeremy Ruckert, you kind of put up there. I think he has that, we've talked about this before, John, is that untapped potential, right? He's coming from that Big Ten school where he was asked to block a whole lot. There were a lot of weapons around him. So in the passing game, he was one of the lower options. And that kind of reminds me of, someone like a TJ Hawkinson, right? Where he comes from Iowa, right? He's asked to block a whole lot. And then maybe the receptions and such weren't there, but you see that he can be a potential receiving threat in the NFL. And that's kind of what happened with him there. And so ultimately, Trey McBride, right? And now that we're just getting over the Senior Bowl, you kind of think about the guys that weren't included there. The Jalen Weidemeyer from Texas A&M. You know, he could potentially, once we have the combine and things start rolling in that direction, he could be up there. I think he's closer to that receiving threat, right, given his size and such. So it's hard for me to put anyone in that Kittle Kelsey group there. I would put them just underneath, probably even a Waller, only because they're so proven. You don't know what you're going to get from them, because I think the tight end position is one of those that is very hard to transition to, where you may not see it right away, such as a Hockenson, or even a Kittle. That doesn't really happen all that fast right away, but it's very difficult, I think, for me to put those guys comparison-wise in the Kittle Kelsey arena.
Okay.
I do want to throw one tight end in here. This is a name I keep hearing. People are texting me about this guy, Isaiah Likely, Coastal Carolina.
You bastard! You're stealing my guy. Go ahead though.
Yeah, sorry, man. What people tell me is, like, you see him in college, but he's going to be a way better pro than he was a college player. And I keep hearing people tell me about Isaiah Likely, so I have to throw his name out there so I can get all the credit and none of the blame.
All right. Yeah. I like Likely. I know there's some people that say, he's not necessarily going to be able to block. They used him a lot as a blocker at his school. And so he needs coaching and he needs work, I'm sure, in the blocking department, but he's quite the weapon. And then the other guy that I've been singing my praises about constantly, Jeremy Ruckert. I really think that he has a lot of potential at the next level. I've referenced him before, but Dane Brugler talked a lot about the fit with the Jets. His blocking ability is going to be a day one guy. You can use him day one in your offense for that alone. So, as far as potential goes, I don't think he's ever going to be like those top 3, top 5 tight ends in regards to, like elite separation and things like that. But what I do think he offers is that dual threat ability, which is to be a good blocker and a guy that can make plays, in the red zone and can make plays over the middle of the football field. So, it's hard to give a name for him specifically. He kind of reminds me build-wise like a Mark Andrews. I don't know if he plays exactly like him, but he kind of has that same body type. So I love Ruckert. And so I'll throw the name Mark Andrews out there. I don't know if he'll hit that ceiling necessarily, but that's the one that I'll use. Joe Campione is saying Likely equals Goddard. That's an interesting. I think Likely might be even kind of like a Gesicki. I mean, I know he's a little bit bigger than Gesicki, but more of a, I don't know, maybe you guys disagree, but like maybe more of like a receiving weapon more so than a 1A blocker in your scheme. What are your thoughts on that comment? Likely similar to Goddard.
I'll say this. I think, when you think of Goddard, I think if I remember, he was a second round pick. Is that right? What he was a couple of years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but still, I think in terms of, straight up pro player comparison, I'm not sure I dig it, but what I do dig is the fact that you could get a guy that has that kind of production who's not a first round guy. You just go beyond the first round and you could still get someone who has that kind of production. I don't know about the straight player comp. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I do like the production you could get. And obviously the Eagles are over the moon about what they've gotten out of Goddard, which was initially paired with Ertz and now kind of becoming his own man out there.
Yeah, he's looking good. This is an interesting comment. Zane Gain, he says he likes McBride and he thinks he's going to be really good, but he's thinking maybe he's just a little bit overhyped. He says it's a great tight end class. Kelsey was a 4th round pick, and anything. I mean, there's a ton of guys in this class that are really worth mentioning, I feel like. So I don't know if I can give you like 3 names necessarily that I'm like really like steadfast on, because there's just too many. There's too many to mention, I think. So all right, cool. We will move on from that. Thank you, Grant Rude, for the mailbag. We've got another one here, and I believe this is from Joe Campione, and it is. This is blocking all of us out. Don't you feel better, Paul?
At least we're all covered now. I feel more balanced.
Yeah. So Joe is saying, would you rather use the 4th pick of the draft on a guard, and I think he's probably talking about Ekwonu, Or would you prefer to trade down to the mid-teens and draft either Burks, Devin Lloyd, he says, etc., plus Zion with an extra second round pick, and you could even maybe even have a future second round pick as well. I think this is a no-brainer here. I'm going to go ahead and stick my 2 cents out there. Any opportunity to trade back if Thibodeau is not available, I'm all over it. James, why don't you go?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I would prefer in that situation if we trade back, because I rank Zion Johnson pretty high in the guard category there. So if we could potentially trade back, get more assets, maybe it's like you said, maybe it's a Burke, so we add to the linebacker group if a Devin Lloyd is still there. Assuming in this scenario we still have the 10th pick, I think that's what the scenario indicates, right? We still have pick 10. We'd be trading back from 4 and going into the mid-teens. So there, if we can add 2 playmakers, which I would like to do in the first round, that could be I know that's a pretty broad range of things there. Playmaker wise, it could be at a lot of different positions, but if we could do that while still having the ability to draft a Zion Johnson to put at guard, that would be a pretty phenomenal situation for the Jets, because I think the value there is tremendous for getting a player like that in the second round. Plus, I guess it looks like we're getting a 2023 asset as well, so that kind of puts it over the top as well.
Not to douse water all over it before you speak on it, Paul, but I really don't see a scenario where if the edges are gone, a trade back from 4 is happening. Like, I don't see that as a scenario. It's not impossible, but I just, what are you trading up for? An offensive tackle? And who is going to do that? I don't know who it would be. Maybe the Giants, but are the Giants going to trade with us? I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
I have a problem with the goddamn question, to be honest with you, because I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but it said, "Would you stay there and just draft a guard, or would you do the blah 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 blah?" And then to me, it was the scene from the Peanut Gallery. Wop 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 wop. Like what do you mean just a guard? See, that's where I hate. I've seen this kind of theme out there. Why would you stay? Just take a guard. No. You would take an Icky, let's just say as the example, and he would play guard temporarily because that was the open hole on the roster. And then the elite insurance policy of I have no idea what Mekhi Becton's going to do. Is he going to keep shoving Snickers bars down his mouth? Is he going to figure it out? I don't know. Or on Jordan Fant's side, is he going to be left tackle? I don't know. So instead, you don't just draft a guard. Okay, you get a guy who can play guard right now, and then if shit hits the fan. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here, but if crap hits the fan, then all of a sudden you jump out. He can protect you at left tackle, or maybe he can protect you at right tackle. Let's say someone gets hurt, then he's right there. He's right there. He's that little warm, tingly feeling in your belly when you go to bed at night. That's what you think. So I hate the question.
You did. And you are more than welcome to curse on my channel, but if your daughter's ears are anywhere near you, I am very disappointed in you. Just messing with you. So I think he's pulling your leg there, Joe. So I do hear what you're saying. The just the guard thing. I see the logic in what he's saying. Trading back and still landing a guard via a trade back. I'm over the moon over the idea. If we're not able to land Thibodeau, which again I'm still going to keep putting out there in the ether that we're going to land him at 4. If that didn't happen and this scenario came about where we could potentially trade back, yes, I would absolutely bite and I would take it and I would definitely do it. All right. Good stuff. And you're very entertaining, as Grant Rude said. Let's go to this next one. Thank you, Joe, for the mailbag. Last one. This is from Caden Smith. And he says, quick mock draft, and this is his own quick mock draft. He says, Ekwonu at 4, trade down from 10 with New Orleans, so that would be the pick 18. You swap firsts with them, and you get Marshawn Lattimore in the trade back. He's going to go wild here. Trade 18 that you just traded back with for Danielle Hunter It's Danielle, Daniil.
Daniil. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to like literally put it out there a couple of times. Then he's saying trade again for Mims. I'm sorry, trade 35 and Mims to get Ridley. Draft McBride at 38. And he says go ahead and fill out linebacker and safety in rounds 3 through 4. This would be the perfect time to reference Madden, I feel like, right?
Yeah. But, wow. I'm not sure if I kept up. It's that one scene where everything is on the wall. And you're like, if this happens and this happens and this happens. But I will say, not to take the air out of the balloon on one of the very first things, Marshawn Lattimore just signed a record-breaking brand new deal. So the Saints would be – their cap is already in cap hell, but they'll do all their magic massaging there. But the Marshawn Lattimore, that dream is dead because he signed the big deal, right? Like when Saints were in salary cap hell last year and Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore and all these guys potentially were hanging in the balance. That no longer is the case. So the Daniil Hunter, sure. Calvin Ridley, okay. Some of those make sense. Unfortunately, right off the top, the Marshawn Lattimore just can't make sense fiscally because of the financial implication. So the rest of it, I'm just going to have to crap
on. What do you think, James? Is there any part of it, since it's a little bit wild, is there any part of it that you do like? Maybe one part.
Yeah, I mean, if we can potentially get a guy like Daniil Hunter to play edge, that would be fantastic. But the place that I struggle with is I think we tend to really devalue certain guys. And a guy like Daniil Hunter, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's extremely young and is a sack master, for the lack of a better term there. I think he would probably go for more than just one first-round pick, especially if that pick is 18. I do think a guy like that would go for more, and kind of just, sorry to kind of throw in another wrench there, but I do not think that the Falcons would give us Calvin Ridley for Mims and a second rounder. I think a guy like that, again, is going to cost quite a bit more. So if we can get Daniil Hunter in some form or fashion, I think that would be fantastic. It's just, again, you go back to what is it really going to cost us?
All right.
Okay, because I just crapped on the deal entirely, let me try to save some face here. Okay, the thing that I like is, in theory, Daniel Jeremiah tweeted it out earlier today, being involved in some way where the point is that proven players come to the Jets for picks, and you have guys that can help out right now. That, which is the theme, obviously, of this wild, crazy mock draft GM craziness. Like the theme is that. So I like that. If that's the end game and trying to make that happen, that makes sense. And to James' point with Daniil Hunter, the reason why Daniil Hunter's value may be lesser, everything he said is right. Young, sackmaster, edge rusher is a premium position in all football. He's been super injury prone and had a scary neck injury. So there's a lot of red flags there that potentially could change your value. And obviously with the new coaching staff coming in and new front office for that matter, right, that always shakes free with potential players no longer having the quote unquote emotional connections to a player they may have in the past. So maybe that opens the door if the Vikings are looking to move. And plus Kevin O'Connell, former Jets quarterback, how could he not do a solid green and white?
Yeah.
Good call there. Vern, because you didn't submit a question this week, okay? If you want a diverse and a little bit easier to chew on mailbag, you need to start submitting a mailbag. It's very simple. We don't get a lot of mailbags. I would love nothing more than to be able to pick and choose. So you guys got to step up and send some more mailbags. That would be awesome. All right, let's move on. We've hit our mailbags, and thank you guys for submitting them. We are going to go to the first topic. And again, we don't have to spend forever on all these topics. They're just guiding, discussion points, really. And later on, we'll do a mock draft. So stick around for that. Before we move on, please hit the like button if you're here and you haven't hit it yet. It's super easy to do. You just push the button. If you're enjoying it and you're watching it, hit it. It's simple. Easy stuff. All right, let's go on and we'll go to the very first one. I have a video on the channel talking about Moore and Carter as potential future stars offensively for the New York Jets moving forward. And I just wanted to hear, your takes on it. What are your thoughts on it? I had some pretty interesting comments from that video. Some people are very, very excited and they think very highly of them. And then there are some people that are very concerned because they both missed significant time. Carter, not as much as Moore, but they both missed time during the season. Where are you guys at in your, maybe like a 1 to 10 level in terms of belief in them becoming true playmakers? Like week to week, you're expecting them to make plays on a consistent basis. We'll go to you, James, first. What are your thoughts on these guys in the future, starting in 2022?
So I'm already there. I believe in them right now. Sorry, my dog is.
It's okay. Your dog is still celebrating from the Super Bowl.
But I'm there in terms of my belief in both of those players to be playmakers starting in, and we saw it in their rookie year. You look at, and I get the injury concerns there, but you look at Elijah Moore, 5 touchdowns, right? He missed a lot of time. He was kind of on a little bit of a run to potentially, right? He got hot there near the end. The big play that comes to mind is that 62-yard touchdown against the Dolphins. Route running wise, he's very versatile. He can play the slot. He can play on the outside. And he has that ability to make the big play, which we can see more consistently if he obviously plays more and in turn creates more targets for him, especially, right? We talk about surrounding Zach with the playmakers, surrounding the other wide receivers, including Elijah Moore, with other guys that the defense has to worry about, can unlock that feature of him potentially being guarded in a different form or fashion, and not an Xavier Howard type of deal where he's on him more consistently if we play against Miami, et cetera. Just an example there. But I do think Elijah Moore has that playmaking, breakout play ability. And if he does play more, we'll see that. So I'm there with that belief that he can be that player. And that is the same with Michael Carter. I mean, we saw him, he had almost, he was really just shy of 1,000 scrimmage yards as a rookie, but different, right? Obviously, we're talking about a running back now, so we're at 2 different positions. And what gives me the belief with Michael Carter is the broken tackles, right? The ability to not be taken down with the first guy. Despite his size, he's 5'8", 201 about. So he's not the tallest or the biggest guy in the world, but teams had a very difficult time bringing him down at the first guy bringing him down. It took quite a bit to get him down there. And so he had, in the week 8 game alone, I believe it was Cincinnati in week 8, he had 10 missed tackles in that entire game. That is a feature that was one broken tackle less than Najee Harris, who had the most in 1 week for any rookie running back. So you look at that ability there.
Nice stat there. Nice.
There you go. See, I got that, because that's what really intrigued me the most, right? We know he had, we know the supporting cast was a little bit shaky for a while, but we saw the breakout, the 55-yard run against Tampa Bay, and then he wound up not being able to finish the game. So plays like that, you see it and you're like, okay, I have a belief that guy, if he plays that way, can only up his game in the future and provide more consistent breakout plays, because we've seen it in this form and fashion so early on in his career at this point.
Awesome. What do you think, Paul? Star power for both of these guys? One of these guys? None of them?
Well, I will say, first off, the shameless self-promotion for the topic for yourself is, again, beautifully done. Beautifully done. But anywho, the topic itself, I mean, how can you not be concerned about the injuries? Obviously, it's year number 1. And, while they were varying to different degrees, Elijah Moore, remember, he missed the entire preseason with an injury. And then he gets into the season, and that contributed obviously to kind of the slow roll to get to where ultimately he became, and he's a rookie, and all of those factors. And obviously Carter, for his circumstance, didn't plug in as RB1. He was mixing with Tevin Coleman and a slew of other guys before he got into his role. Now, on the other side, obviously you have to be tantalized and excited about, first off, just rookies contributing in general. Unfortunately, the Jets have had so many picks where either they drafted a guy who didn't even make the team, Ja'Kai Polite, or you had just other guys where they were just drafted and they just never did anything. Christian Hackenberg never played a snap. Like there's just all these players historically, Jalen Saunders and other guys. I'm just bringing randos in that like drafted. We're like, oh, those guys are going to be a guy, and then nothing. Well, Michael P. Ryan is like he's cryogenically frozen somewhere in the Jets' basement. Like I don't know what's happening with half of these guys, but so again, the injuries are concerning, but the star power is amazing. The Elijah Moore touchdown that James was talking about to Miami was freakish. I was giddy. I was jumping up, touching the ceiling on that one. That was great. Michael Carter and just the wiggle. And the other thing that I love, besides the shake and bake, the wiggle, is the ability to catch a ball out of the backfield, showing that chutzpah. Now, again, he didn't have to do it in any dynamic sense, like lining up in the slot and running like real routes. He was just kind of getting dump offs, but he made magic happen with those dump offs. For me, I think he needs a Robin to his Batman, quite frankly. I think he needs a running back there that's got some Brutus beefcake, a little chutzpah, a little juice. And I think they can find, a chubby kind of guy that could do it. I love Tyler Algier. Reconnect him with Zach Wilson. Wrote an article about it for Heavy. Taking a good lesson there from John. So there you go. Shameless self-promotion. But anywho, I mean, so he would make a lot of sense. I like James Conner as a guy that could do the same thing. Now, you need like a guy that could do short yardage situations, even versatility. Again, a 1A to 1B. It's not an insult to Carter that I want to bring another guy in. It's just the nature of the beast. That's what it is. Rare is Jonathan Taylor. Rare is Najee Harris. Like, you need a lot of different guys to make it the length of a season and extend careers. So, long story short, I think they're both budding stars. But the injuries are clearly a concern. They're a concern until they're not a concern. If they come back fully healthy next year, 16, 15-plus games, then I'll shut up. But until then, I can't.
I love everything you guys said. I only want to just add one thing. I think that if the Jets get, and again, the offensive line was not poor last year. It was definitely closer to what we need it to be. If they can get the offensive line to play a couple of notches above what we've seen, I think Michael Carter has extreme breakout potential in 2022. So if you add an Ekwonu, and I'm not even like necessarily like a huge fan of that idea, but if you go and add him, if you go and you get a Tyler Linderbaum, which we have a topic on tonight. I'm not a huge fan of that idea, but if you go and you add him, I really do think that there is potential for Michael Carter to very much so be a 1,000 plus total yardage guy. He almost did it this year with all of the factors that you just named. Got hurt, didn't even have a lot of touches to begin the year, and the offense around him wasn't even that great. Like, we were struggling at certain times during the season. So Moore is the one that people talk the most about, and rightfully so. He's he's stupendous, and I think he's going to be a star. But I think that the thing that we should look for is our offensive line. If they start opening some big holes, because you talked about it, James, elusiveness and ability to make the first guy miss. If you're opening holes and making guys miss, watch out. I think that's got extreme potential, and Michael Carter does not need 25 touches, and nor should he get them. I think he should be in that 15 to 18 range per game. Like a Kamara. Kamara doesn't get a million touches every game. He's sort of in that range as well. Recently he's been getting more, but his, early on in his career, he was not a massive touch guy. So please get another guy. Please get another dude. And Algier would be outstanding. He would be really good. I really like a lot of the guys, though. There's a bunch of names. Damian Pierce from Florida is a guy that people really like. Hassan Haskins from Michigan. There's a couple others. I like Rashad White, Arizona State University. He'd be another guy. So they definitely need to add somebody. And like you said, Paul, nothing like wrong with that. That doesn't make Michael Carter less valuable. Go get another dude and get this freaking running game going, man. Because that's the thing. I really do want to see our running game start to really open up some running lanes. Kev Chada, he says, I'm convinced bruiser running backs can be found in undrafted free agency. you certainly have a better chance of finding a running back than maybe some other positions from the undrafted free agency and late round picks. I'm of the mindset that if you're going to get a running back, definitely consider it late. We got Carter in mid round 4, or sorry, round 4. Yeah. And I think, again, you're seeing why they took him, because of his ability to make the first guy miss. And that's not every running back can do that at that level. And he's certainly got a special gift there. All right, cool. Let me see if there's any comments here. Whoa, wait. You mean if Carter isn't having to dodge tacklers 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage 80% of the time, he's going to be really good? You're not wrong.
What a take.
Yeah, no, he's not wrong, but because in the same breath, like, and I was kind of surprised at the number when I looked it up. I don't know if I should be surprised, but I guess I was. He had 4.3 yards per carry this year, which is a pretty strong number when you, again, go back to all the circumstances that we talked about him dealing with. I thought that was really impressive that he had that number. Yeah, so if they can open up some more holes, if that number goes up, if that number goes up anymore, when he just or stays around that area, you're looking at some numbers that he would put up.
Big time, man. Big numbers. And again, there were seasons where Curtis Martin averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Like, we don't need him to be a grinded out running back. Go make big plays. And I really do foresee, I see him being able to do that with better supporting cast around him. Open up those lanes, man, he's going to go. All right. Our running back should be able to block, catch passes out of the backfield. I think Carter, he certainly caught passes, and I think he will get even better as the years go by. He's going to learn more and get better at blocking. I don't know if it was a weakness necessarily for him, but I don't study film that closely, to know that for sure. Ty Johnson had problems pass protecting. I know that was
yes.
That's one that really pops in my mind and was kind of obvious when you watched him play. Edward Stewart with the scary profile pick. He says, keep that O-line strong, add another running back, and the yards are going to come. A Mitch, he says, Carter is thumbs up. That's what I think, man. And again, if I had 3 arms, I would put 3 thumbs up. And Vern, we'll wrap up this comment or this topic after this. He says, looking at Carter as the Aaron Jones, we need to go ahead and find our AJ Dillon. And I even mentioned Aaron Jones in the video. Again, selfless plug there, but I did mention Aaron Jones. It could be, oh, there she is.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
No, don't be sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
It's a baby. It's okay.
Yeah, that's it. I actually get the notification. Your daughter just cried. So I get that actually on the phone. We have this like, baby monitor, and when it hears the cry, it like sends a thing. Hey, your baby's crying. So technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jim Pock is saying, I like Carter if we add a running back. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, if you put some more things around in place, I think he's going to really, really blossom a lot. A Mitch, he says, we would have beaten Tampa if Carter did not have that concussion for sure.
True.
Of all of the losses that were close, that certainly was the hardest.
I'm never going to, I'm not, I guess you could forgive it in a season where like, it's not like that game you win, you're in the playoffs. So maybe that makes it somewhat easier, but I had the article written, Zach Wilson outduels Tom Brady, and I'm like hovering over post. I'm like, and then delete. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough game. All right, let's move it along. Thank you guys for all these good comments. I am very optimistic about those 2 guys, very much so. I don't want to be a fanboy and like just support every player, but I really do feel confidently in those 2. All right, we're going to get to draft now. It's going to be pretty much exclusively draft from here on out. This is a topic that really is something close to my heart here, and I am very interested to see what you have to say here. I think I know what James thinks, but I would be interested to see what you think, Paul, and chat, and for the commenters here and for the people watching. So, Tyler Linderbaum, would you consider drafting him at 4 or 10? Let's try to remove well, it depends on what happens, like here. Like, we know that free agency hasn't happened, but would you do it? Just, would you consider it? Would it be something that you would do it for? Or Would you do it at either? Or would you do it at neither? Paul, you'll go first.
I would probably rather castrate myself with a rusty fork, to be honest with you. If I could be about as vivid as I could be. I'm sure I could have picked a prospect that'd be worse, like Kyle Hamilton, right? Among Jet fans, I'm sure that would be the pick that would make them feel in that way. Here's the thing. I like Linderbaum. And when all the Jet fans are kind of going crazy, oh, man, Linderbaum to the Jets. Like, hey, I'm not going to hate, better offensive line play. But I feel like the real way that Linderbaum ends up on the Jets is neither 4 or 10. It's they take it. I don't think they're trading back from 4. Outside of something wild, I don't see that. I think 4 is happening no matter what. Regardless of BPA, someone's going to be there the Jets are in love with. 10, sure, we can flirt around and mess around with 10, and they can move up from 35, 38. Like, all that can be flexible. I think the spot is if Linderbaum – there's one of two things that could happen. He can either go top 10 straight up, Quentin Nelson style, doesn't matter. He's great. Screw the value. He's going to do it. It's going to be great. And that could happen. And he goes, 5th overall, whatever, to the Giants. I could see that. The Giants just saying, boom, we're doing this. I could see that. But what I could also see is the other side of that. Linderbaum starts dropping because centers drop. Happens all the time. Happened with Creed Humphrey. Happened with all these really, really good centers.
Nick Mangold.
Nick Mangold. I know. Mangold. He's a great example. So, like, the other thing I could see happening is he just starts, like, sky falling. And he's a really good player, but people are just like, center. I don't know. Like, Todd McShay apparently earlier on television today said if Tyler Linderbaum was a guard, he could be the number 1 overall pick. But because he's not, he's going to fall. And I'm just like, wow, interesting comment. But the point is that if he starts just dropping, like, teens – early 20s, then I think the Jets, Joe Douglas does the classic, like Elijah Vera Tucker call, screw this, we've got the picks, YOLO, and we trade up and do it. Because that's the thing. Right now, I think they're comfortable with Connor McGovern. Now, we all might not be as fans, or maybe it's somewhat of a split conversation, but I think Joe Douglas is fine, and then something happens. I think a great example is this. The Jets are going to go into the season with Mekhi Becton as the left tackle and George Fant as the right tackle. Then Morgan Moses got released, and they changed their plan. Their plan was fine. We're going to roll out with Mekhi Becton and George Fant. Then all of a sudden, Morgan Moses came out of nowhere. They said, hey, we're adapt or die, as they say in Moneyball. We're going to figure it out. So we're bringing Morgan Moses. I think the same thing. Linderbaum starts dropping. They're like, well, we were okay with Connor McGovern at center, but YOLO, and then they trade up and get him. I think that's where he ends up. I think there is a negative % chance that he either 4 or 10 happens. I'd be flabbergasted.
Oh, I'm glad I brought you on. I'm so glad. So, you said a really good point though about the Elijah Vera Tucker, and I hadn't thought about that. AVT didn't have like a massive drop, but he kind of slipped maybe a couple of slots further than maybe what the Jets had thought. And when they saw him go, into, I think was it pick 14?
14, yeah.
Yeah. You must know that when they were at 12 and 13 and he's like still there, they must have been making the call. Like, okay, we got to start pursuing this. Maybe that's something that could happen with Linderbaum. And again, the position definitely, it happens every year in the draft. There's no centers going in the top 10. That just doesn't happen. James, what are your thoughts? You can disagree with me completely.
No, I agree with you both. I would not take him at 4 or 10. And it has nothing to do with Tyler Linderbaum himself. He's going to be a fine player in the NFL. Extremely talented, right? It's just not the direction that I think the organization needs to go with the position that they're in right now. I think, and Paul is right. Connor McGovern, people are a little bit split, but ultimately most likely played a little bit better than people want to give him credit for. And the offensive line as a whole did get better as the year went on. For me, and John, this, it's got to be guys, and this, again, not to say that Linderbaum can't make impact plays and he can't affect the running game in a major way, but I think they have to go in a direction where they have someone on defense, whether it's an edge rusher or somebody in the secondary that can make game-changing plays. Turnovers win football games. Again, we've been plugging everyone's been selfishly plugging. I'm going to quickly plug too.
Do it.
I wrote an article on Ahmad Gardner there, and one of the pieces I wrote about in the pass defense was of the top 20 teams that were the top 20 teams in total interceptions on defense, right? They forced the most interceptions. 15 of those teams had a record of over 500. And of the 14 playoff teams, only 2 of them were not in that top 20. So 14 out of those 20, and it's not to say it's the only factor, but ultimately my opinion on this whole defense here is they need to get guys who can get their hands on the football. And so I think if they don't address it in free agency, one of those picks has to go. And maybe that's a pass rusher who helps the secondary as well. They go hand in hand. And then offensively, either it's a guy like Icky, right, who can, and Paul said it, step in and play guard, but also in the future, he can play a tackle position. There's a versatility about him there where we used a first-round pick on Mekhi Becton in 2020, a first-round pick on AVT in 2021, and then if we go 3 years in a row with a first-round pick on the offensive line, you'd prefer it to be a guy who can step in and play right now at a spot we need and eventually potentially kick out and play a tackle spot. For Linderbaum, do you want to spend that pick on a guy who's going to be strictly the center? And that's going to be it. And I'm not trying to devalue the position at all, but I just think the direction that the Jets have to go is not at the center spot with one of these premium top 10 picks that they have.
Can I answer one of the comments you threw in there? Because I saw it flowing in there, and I'm like, Paul, you dumb idiot. The Eagles have 3 top 20 picks, you moron. They're not going to skip Linderbaum 3 times. Hey, Kev Chata, or whatever the hell your name was, let me tell you this, okay? The Eagles aren't going to have those picks. You want to know why? Because they're going to go blockbuster on a quarterback. So they're not going to have those picks. So up yours, Kev_Chata. Not happening. So guess what? They won't have the opportunity to pass because they won't have the picks.
Listen, it absolutely could happen. And I think that's what a lot of people are speculating. The Eagles are going to be buyers for a quarterback. Russell Wilson, if things work out for Deshaun Watson, I think they'd be interested in him as well. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't go back to the Packers, which I don't know. It seems more and more likely that he's going to go back. He's just grumpy. Like, he's just a grumpy dude. Like, Aaron Rodgers is just kind of emotional. All right. Let's take a look here. We got a bunch of great comments. You guys are loading it up. If you wouldn't mind, load up that like button right now. Hit it if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. If you are new, check out the content on the channel. Check out some of these guys' work. We got James from Jets X Factor. We've got Paul Esden Jr. from Heavy.com and his own YouTube channel as well. Hope you guys check out everybody's content here. Yeah, baby. Let's go. All right. Let's move it along here. Thank you guys for commenting. I'm not going to say a word because you guys echoed a lot of my feelings on Linderbaum, and I'll say one thing. The versatility thing. I got a lot of flack on Twitter about mentioning the fact that Joe Douglas, he values it, and he has literally talked about it in every signing that he's made, in every draft pick that he's made. He's talked about how Becton played right tackle and left tackle. He's talked about how Elijah Vera Tucker played guard and tackle. McGovern played guard and he can play center. And it's every move that he makes. George Fant, I think he even, talked about his versatility as well. So when I mentioned Linderbaum potentially not having the same versatility, it got crazy hate. And it's a fact. Like, I'm not making it up. It's just what Joe Douglas has been preaching. And there is a really good chance that Linderbaum is restricted to center duty only. And that's where I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that. Let's move on. Thank you guys so much. This is something I thought about quite literally in the shower before the show. So I was thinking about dark horses and I said, let's do a dark horse segment.
When aren't we?
Yeah. So basically it's straightforward. A player that's not being talked a lot about in this 2022 draft class that you feel like, man, if they could just land this guy, the New York Jets, that is, this would be a home run draft pick in the mid rounds, late rounds, I've got a couple of guys in mind, so hopefully you don't take both of them. But let's let's go to James first. James, what's one of your dark horse guys? It's still early in the process, but someone you really just love that isn't getting any love from, the online peeps.
That's a good one. That's a good question.
Do you need to go take a shower real quick?
Yeah. I'm gonna throw a name out there that I was actually watching during the season, and I kind of threw a question out to one of the draft analysts out there on Twitter. I never got a response, so that kind of sucked. But I never got a response. But when I watched the game, and it was only one game. But I thought the physical tools were there, and I'm starting to kind of get into him, and I think he's going to wind up being a much later round pick. I haven't heard his name really so much at all. But Amari Barno from Virginia Tech, he's an edge rusher. He's got real good length and size there, maybe a tad skinny on the skinny side, but someone that I'm kind of keeping an eye on if the Jets wind up going a ton of other directions and we need to take a potential, later round pick on a guy who's available at the edge spot that has some tools. So Amari Barno for me, he's an edge at Virginia Tech there. And I'm going to throw in a name that's getting the buzz now because I think it's the Senior Bowl. And it's starting to get the buzz, but I still think there's room for him to really shoot up the boards. And it's a guy we've talked about on this channel before, but Christian Watson, the wide receiver for North Dakota State, he's starting to get it after the Senior Bowl performance. So it's not so much of a dark horse, I would say, but I do think that ultimately he's a guy that can wind up shooting up the draft boards and would be a pretty, there you go, Christian Watson, that really has the tools. You look at the size, right? He's similar in size to a Drake London height-wise and weight-wise. I think they're both around 210. But Christian Watson has a little bit of a speed factor to him as well, where they actually handed the ball off to him quite a bit. I don't want to say quite a bit, a few times over at North Dakota State. So there's some versatility there with, what Mike LaFleur likes to do in this offense, give it to, a lot of different guys and a lot of different variety. So I would name those two guys, but yeah, and Amari Barno, I'm kind of still looking into him, and he could be a pretty dark horse candidate there.
I love it. I haven't heard his name. I'm going to look him up. I wrote his name down. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, there's so many different names, which is just, again, I talked about it last stream. There's so many different people on here that we haven't seen before. It's so nice to see just different ideas from different people. So for anybody that's new to the channel, really appreciate you tuning in. We've had a lot of new subscribers lately, which is awesome. So anybody that's new to the channel and you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Randall is one of those guys that is brand new. Haven't seen you in the streams before. Shane Howard is another one. So very much welcome and appreciate you guys coming in and giving us some of your takes, because at the end of the day, I think James, he's the guy that knows a little bit more of the X's and O's, but at the end of the day, I'm a fan, and I'm not trying to say you're not more than a fan here, Mr. Paul, but we're fans. Like, we are Jets fans. And so it's great to have, that perspective from you guys. So anyway, Shane is saying Jack Cochran is a very underrated linebacker, and a bunch of people are saying Christian Watson. So, he's a popular name right now. And there was a little clip of him on Twitter using a cut, he stuck his right leg into the ground and boom to the left and got a lot of separation. And so people are talking about him right now as a guy that's, that's not something you typically see from someone that size. So he's definitely a dark horse wide receiver because he's not in the top 5 and maybe just in that top 10. So Paul, dark horse, go.
All right, I got a million names, but I'll try to rein it in only to a couple. We'll stand wide receiver first. Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver out of Boise State. I sent a picture out from the Senior Bowl of him hanging out with Miles Austin, him kind of coaching him up. If the Jets lose Braxton Berrios, okay, and they dump him on the side of the road like a trash bag filled with rotten mangoes, okay, if they dump him over there, I'm thinking Khalil Shakir, man, he's a guy who just is a highlight monster, could plug in there in the slot. I know Elijah Moore also has slot versatility, but that to me would be incredibly intriguing. And the Jets coached him at the Senior Bowl, so that doesn't hurt. And I think that's going to be a theme here, obviously, with a bunch of these kind of names that I'm going to go through. Another one is Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati. I really love that entire Cincinnati defense this year in general. He was a monster at the Senior Bowl, 6'5", 255 pounds. And again, this is a guy that I think you're just betting on that he just hasn't quite reached the level yet, but you think with coaching and everything else that he can. And that leads me to one of my favorite guys. I got to give a third guy here, Boye Mafe. I mean, come on, people, out of Minnesota. This guy's a freak. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. Exponentially has gotten better each year of his career at Minnesota from every major defensive statistical category. And I think he entered the Senior Bowl as like a day 2 pick, somewhere in that second or third round. And now there's a legit first round buzz. We will see. Again, there's only 32 teams. Someone's going to have to drop. Not everyone can rise up, but Boye Mafe, again, the Jets coached him at the Senior Bowl. I think once they get their hands on him, and I think I shared that video, after the Super Bowl ended, every NFL team said, oh, the offseason starts now. And the Jets had this clip that I shared on Twitter, at BoyGreen25. Wink. So I shared this clip out on Twitter where it was like this quick highlight reel of like 12 seconds where Joe Douglas, Mike LaFleur, and a couple of the guys said, wow, he's legit. Whoa, man, I could sit back and watch him all day. It was Brant Boyer. And then all of them just said it, but they didn't say who it was. So I kind of said, oh man, who do you guys think that could be? That's really interesting. Boye Mafe could have easily been that guy. And I just, man, I'm in love with him. If I wasn't already engaged, I may think about getting another ring now.
Beautiful. There are so many different names in the chat. You guys are loading it up, which is awesome. Cali Jets is on Twitter. Great guy to follow. Good takes as well. And he says Veron McKinley, safety from Oregon, led the nation in picks and can get him in the mid rounds. Need a ball hawk badly. And day 2 is where safety should be selected. AKA Hamilton at 4 is a hell no. Yeah, dude, we got to get the value. It's safety for sure. Thank you for joining us, Callie. Okay, that was a lot of names. You didn't take any of mine, which is nice. I'm very, very happy with you too. Good behavior. Appreciate it. I'm gonna throw Cameron Thomas into the mix here. San Diego State University defensive lineman. We're gonna talk about the defensive lineman in a little bit, but he is a versatile piece. He's strong as hell. Long arms. He's got great get off. I really like Cam Thomas, and I'm hoping that he slides. I don't know where he's going to go necessarily. It might not be all that late. He might end up being a second or a third round pick, but not too many people talk about him. So he's one of my guys I really feel good about. And he's one of those defensive linemen that can play outside and inside and would help against the run. He's strong against the run, great at the point of attack, and so love him. And then the other guy, I've mentioned him a couple of times, is Kirby Joseph, the safety from Illinois. Awesome final year at Illinois. He had a really big year. And if there's, if Joe Douglas and the guys see him as somebody that they can coach up and get even more out of, I'm all about getting value at safety like Cali Jets talked about, so I wanted to throw that name in there as well. We got a super chat from A. Mitch. Really appreciate that, man. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. He says, great work, loving the show. Would love edge at 4 and a trade back at 10. And lucky ducky you, we are doing that exact scenario tonight. I can't promise we'll take an edge at 4, but we will absolutely be trading back from 10. I have a video coming out this weekend, another selfless plug. It will be specifically talking about the value and I'm starting to believe that might be the move that is most beneficial for the Jets. I know some people get a little bit upset with the idea of, oh, don't worry about quantity, go after the quality. But I really do think the value is there in the mid first round, late first round, early second round. And if we can get more of those picks, oh baby, I'd be happy. All right. Thank you, A Mitch, again for the super chat. And thanks for the reminder to do a trade back, because we will be doing that tonight. The plugs be plugging. Hey, listen, man. I could care less. I want these guys around, and if they want to plug, and I've been plugging away all night myself, so check our stuff out. That's what we're saying. Check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move along here. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you, James, as always, for coming on, and thank you very much, Paul, for joining us.
Of course.
Really, really appreciate it.
Okay. Green Chief.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny. All right. So we're going to do, probably this is going to have to be our last topic of the night. I did have another one, but we'll save it for next week. This is the longest one of the night, and then we'll do our mock draft. So if you're still watching this with us and you're sticking around for the mock, that will be the next thing we do. Top 10 edge rushers, and I am prepared to go first. I'm prepared to go last. I don't really care. I've got my list in front of me. James, do you want to go first?
No, John. I want to see. I'd like to see your list too. Let's
Okay.
have you go first. We kind of. I feel like sometimes we kind of talk a lot, and then I feel bad, and it's like, oh yeah, no, And so I feel bad that we sometimes maybe I talk too much. So this is. I want to give you the floor there.
I do like that. I appreciate that. I feel like I'm the leader of a discussion, not necessarily the one that does all the discussing. So, okay, he wants my list. I'll give you 1 to 5, and then we'll bounce it around like we did last week. So my first one is going to be Aiden Hutchinson. I do have him ahead of Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that he is just barely better. I think there's a lot to like about Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's strong as hell, strong hands. That might be his best part of his game, is how strong of a punch he has. His, the rip and dip move that he has. It's like a move that he's known for at Michigan, and it's pretty tough to stop from what I understand. But he uses his hands really well. And something that I didn't realize, and I've been reading a little bit more about, he actually has pretty good flexibility, and can get around the edge pretty nicely as well. It might not be like, he's not like an elite speed rusher necessarily, but nor is like a Nick Bosa necessarily. He's not really known for his speed. He's really known for just being a badass and taking names basically on the edge. He is super strong, and I see him like a Nick Bosa. He's not as talented as Nick Bosa, but similar in the way they go about doing their business. So Aiden Hutchinson. And Jim Pockey's saying he's not just a rusher. He does a bunch of different things. He can rush in a 2-point stance, which is where he's got no hands on the ground. He can rush from a 3-point stance. So you're right. He can play all over the place. And I read in the report that I did in preparation for the show, they used him on the defensive line in those short yardage situations to help stop the run. They were not taking him off the field by any means. So this is a guy that you can play all 4 downs. There's no reason not to have him on the football field. So Aiden Hutchinson is my number 1 guy. Kayvon Thibodeau, no surprise. He's number 2. He's the explosive one. He's got the flexibility. There's some questions with him that have come up in this offseason, character-wise. He had some injuries in 2021, played through them, and, I think it was an ankle injury, and that may have decreased some of the production that he had. But he's pretty consistent in the 3 years that he was at Oregon. 14 tackles for a loss, 9.5, 12. So he is getting in the backfield pretty consistently every year. I think a lot of people look at the sack numbers only. You can't necessarily do that. But again, pretty productive as well in the sack game. Almost 20 sacks in his college career. And he's also not one-dimensional. He's not just a pass rusher. He also is strong against the run and is going to be able to make plays in the run defense. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I have Jermaine Johnson as my third edge rusher, ahead of George Karlaftis, which I think a lot of people have as the third. I think that he just kicked so much ass in the ACC this past year. 17 and a half tackles for loss. I mean, he's getting behind the line of scrimmage, and he's living in the behind the line of scrimmage. Um, Decent but not great bend is another thing that I've read. He has a lot of different pass rush moves and hand counters. He also provides some pop with his hands. Georgie Karlaftis is my number 4. When I was watching him on film, I didn't necessarily see a great get off, but that's apparently, there's like, I'm reading these scouting reports and in doing preparation, apparently it's very, very good get off. He has decent, to very good first step. The big problem with him I'm seeing and in reading about him, he's not going to be an elite. He's not going to have an elite ability to separate from offensive linemen. His arms are not going to be terribly long when he measures at the combine. And it could be a problem for him at the NFL, not having those long arms. But having said that, he's also super strong, heavy-handed, and he's going to push people backwards at the NFL level. We've seen undersized guys at the NFL level have success, and so I'm going to go ahead and, talk a little bit about the fact that just because he has short arms doesn't mean he can't be productive at the NFL level. Joe Blewett is a big fan, apparently, of Karlaftis. I didn't know that, and I do have a lot of respect for him. He does a lot of work for Jets X Factor. And then my number 5 guy, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too long, like you said you do yourself, Trayvon Walker from Georgia. Is that correct? Am I right? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, just want to be sure. Athleticism is explosive, and it's noticeable when you watch him. His flexibility apparently is in question. He is a bigger dude, 6'5", 275. Strong hands though, and he's going to push people backwards. The production wasn't mind-blowing at Georgia, but a guy that projects well to the NFL level. All right, let me go to some comments and then we'll get to you guys. Whew, Jeremy Cravat, what is going on, man? He says, Boye Mafe looked good to me if he is there in the 3rd round. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know if he'll be there, though. I think maybe he's sliding up the board here. Maybe 2nd, 1st, late 1st. That could even be something that could happen. Grant Rude said, you made me blush, James. You did. I was tickled. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, and I should have mentioned this, Edward. Edward, I'm glad you just said that. So I did remove 2 players from the edge list here because I feel like they are going to be better suited as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I did take Drake Jackson off of my list and also David Ajabo. I took them off my list. I don't know if they're going to be able to play 4-3 hand in the dirt defensive line. Those are good players, though. All right, James, top 5.
Yeah, so I have Kayvon Thibodeau number 1 on my list. It's the burst and the explosiveness for me that I kind of put over, again, not to Aiden Hutchinson is 2 for me. I think they're 2 different players. They just get it done in 2 different ways. And Kayvon there with the burst and the explosiveness, I think he's a rare athlete. So putting him at that number 1 spot for me is kind of where I would like to have him on the Jets. Maybe number 1 there can go number 4. And then Aiden Hutchinson, right? It's the production for him. It's a relentless factor, right? He is going to try to wreck the game in many different forms and fashions, whether that's in the run game, tackles for loss, or sacks. And he has a aspect of the power to him, right? So he's a little bit different than Kayvon there. Kayvon does turn his moves into power, and he does have the ability to push back the offensive lineman there to collapse the pocket. But ultimately that burst, that explosiveness, I think is 1 step above Hutchinson. So that's why I ranked them 1 and 2. I do have George Karlaftis as number 3. He has a power, and you're right, John, that the length of his arms kind of is the issue there. He does have a lot of power to his game, which is preferable as well, especially if he's going to have those shorter arms there for his moves. And I do think he's a lot better of an athlete than people are going to give him credit for. And so I put him in that number 3 spot. Jermaine Johnson is number 4. Jermaine Johnson is taking a meteoric rise. And I don't know if you guys saw Andrew Golden's mock draft for the Jets. He just wrote one for Jets X Factor. He had us taking Jermaine Johnson at 4 overall.
Whoa.
Which was,
I think that's too high. That's too high, no?
Yeah, he is. Andrew is over the moon about Jermaine Johnson, and I respect his opinion as well. He also likes George Karlaftis a lot, so he's very high on those rushers beyond Kayvon and Aiden as well. But Jermaine Johnson, 17.5 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks on the year. He's a transfer from Georgia, which is an embarrassment of riches for Georgia to even say now that they had Jermaine Johnson at one point in time. But they're also, when we always talk about injuries, he was a bit of an Iron Man. He played a whole bunch of snaps for Florida State. He didn't really come off the field this year. So Jermaine Johnson sat at my number 4 spot. And I didn't remove Ajobo from, am I saying that name correctly?
Ajabo.
I kept him on my list there, and I have him at number 5. He collapses the pocket super quick, and it is difficult, right? You take those guys. Are they going to be the 3-4? Are they going to be the 4-3? Really that deciding factor is, how do they handle the run game, right? How does their body fit in the run game? But ultimately, I do think, with time, some of those guys can improve their run game skills, and Ojabo has the ability to rush the passer. That puts him at that number 5 spot for me.
Sorry, I muted myself. I no, it's okay. You're good. I muted myself because I was gonna type. Paul, it is your swing at it. Feel free to talk as much as you want or as little as you want.
Excellent. I thoroughly enjoy doing that.
Do you want to plug any? Do you want to plug anything while you're at it?
At BoyGreen25, YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. Hit the subscribe button. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the draft, so help me get there, people. Appreciate it. Again, did I mention at BoyGreen25? Excellent. All right. So top 5 pass rushers. Okay, let's start off at the top. Kayvon Thibodeau. To me, he's Gumby, man. He's this bendy, twitchy, everything that I just think the ceiling. I guess that's it. When I close my eyes, I see the ceiling. I get the right now. The right now, I think he's pretty good, but I just see what he can be, and I've fallen in love. So that's why I have him at number 1. Again, Gumby, bendy, twitchy. He just does it all for me. Number 2, I have Aiden Hutchinson, and I think he's going to be better right away compared to Kayvon. I think when he comes in the league, he's just going to be really good right from the get-go, and people are going to go, oh, see, that's what I told you, depending on where they end up going in the top 3. But I think, again, the long game, I think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be better. Number 3, I'm going to put the man that you two have disrespected. John just took him off the list completely, and then James squeezed him in the top 5. How about David Ajabo, man? Because this is a guy, and this is where we could get into the whole scheme conversation, but here's the thing for me. First off, he's Scottish-Nigerian. Not sure if you guys knew that, but he was born in Nigeria and moved over to the Scotland area when he was 7. So he's Scottish-Nigerian for those counting at home. And I'll tell you this. This is a guy that, to me, and I had this conversation with Derek Klassen on my Mock Draft Monday special on Monday from Bleacher Report, and we talked about scheme versus taking a really good player. Because, people are probably, NFL teams are going to take guys off the board that either have a 4-3 and say, oh, I can't get this guy, he won't fit, or a 3-4 and I can't take that guy. And I always go back to Rex Ryan when he drafted Sheldon Richardson. Immediately, a lot of people trashed and said, he doesn't fit in their scheme. How the hell is that going to work? Sheldon Richardson ended up winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Rex Ryan had a plan. While he didn't fit maybe this scheme or that scheme, he fit what he thought they could do. And that's what I see with Ajabo. I see a guy that is just, again, he doesn't have a ton of football experience. And look what he's done already. And people will say, well, he had Aiden Hutchinson on the other side. Well, I'd say in that same conversation, Aiden Hutchinson had Ajabo. So maybe that's why Aiden Hutchinson had the production he did. They were both really good. And they both benefited off each other. So, again, I think Ajabo is getting jobbed, quite frankly. And I think he does it. Yeah,
Do you think he can play 4-3?
absolutely. I think he can be a weapon of mass destruction. I think he can be. Robert's always going to get his hands on this guy, and he's going to know how to use him. We don't have to go, oh, well, the square peg and the round hole and the triangle, rectangular trapezoid. Up yours, man. A Jocko can play football. Okay, so you're going to draft him, and then you're going to plug and play him. That's what he can do. So yes, can he play in the 4-3? He played the 4-3, 5-5-3, 4-6, 7-8. 2 + 2 = 4. E = MC squared. Yes.
I'm cool with that, by the way, and I appreciate that because I remember earlier in the offseason, I had said I liked Ajabo, and it got poo-pooed a little bit by everybody, and maybe I should have stood firmer on that. He is explosive. Go ahead, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Come on, John. Where's your backbone, you jellyfish? Come on, man.
I know.
All right. And now here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna tweet that. They're like, Paul, smart. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. NYJ today is gonna be like, well, but I said that a couple weeks ago. Shut up, John. Paul's talking. Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. Excellent. Like I said, you should have held back. Okay, the rest of the top 5 real quick. Again, I already talked about this guy earlier, so I won't waste a lot of time. But Myjai Sanders, I'm going to put at number 4. He doesn't have a ton of moves, but the moves he has are really good. And I think you can develop even more with them. Again, trusting coaching when you're drafting players. And number 5, I have George Karlaftis. I'm not a huge George Karlaftis guy, but I think the thing that you like with him is the versatility inside out. That's going to be great. I think he's a high floor guy. So I don't think there's a massive bust potential here, but I think he could have an AJ Epinesa fall, like that happened a couple of years ago with Buffalo, and he ended up going. I don't think he'll fall all the way to the 50s like Epinesa did, but we talked about him as top 5. He was a popular number 4 overall pick initially, and then it's kind of fallen off, and then he's kind of worked his way back up, and I think he's going to just slide in the draft. Again, high floor guy, but doesn't really titillate the testicles.
Oh Lord, I love it. All right. Good stuff. We talked about edge rushers and titillating our testicles, so what could be better? Vern is a diehard, and he had an awesome description of the Greek Freak earlier. He's been talking about George Karlaftis all offseason, so credit to you, and I loved what he said earlier. I'm going to find it. He said, Karlaftis is a freight train that lost its brakes. Wow. I love that. Love that expression. Yeah. That's a cool one. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll keep doing it. We've got top 5 done. We'll do to round out the top 10 pass rushers. I'm going to try to talk less this time. I do have Boye Mafe. Am I saying that right? Boye Mafe?
Boye Mafe.
Boye Mafe. My apologies. Boye Mafe. Kingsley Enegbar. Correct? Enegbar? Yep. Enegbar? Yes? Oh, you don't like that one, do you, Paul? Kingsley Enegbar. Excellent athleticism, first step explosions. He can transfer from speed rushes to power rushes. Strong hands. The big thing with him is, and there's a couple of guys on this bottom half of the top 10 that, they are not necessarily going to struggle at the NFL level with stopping the run, but they need coaching. The thing that I read that stuck out to me was he's inconsistent with run fits, which is playing his gaps appropriately and being able to recognize the blocking scheme that they're using. So those are things he's going to need to work on. But the consistency in his production is actually ridiculous. At South Carolina, his sophomore, junior, and senior year, 7 tackles for a loss in all 3 of those seasons. And the sack production was there. It was there pretty much every year. He was getting in there and making plays. So I like him. Cameron Thomas, I talked about him earlier. The biggest knock that I could give against him is maybe he's just not the most flexible dude. But otherwise, I think he is just an outstanding football player. And the scouting report that I read used the words rare level of effort. So this is a all gas, no break kind of dude. Fits the mantra, fits the scheme. He can play on the edge. He can play inside. He is truly one of my favorite players in the entire class. And I'm going to keep talking about him all off season in hopes that they will take him. Arnold Ebiketie from Temple and Penn State, transferred from Temple after his freshman year. After his sophomore year. Didn't get a whole lot of play time there. Got to Penn State though, and this is a dude that makes a lot of plays. He had a monster final season for Penn State. 18 tackles for a loss, more than doubled his sack production. And he is, again, one of those guys that's going to need to work on his defense of the run. It was a big problem for the New York Jets, obviously, in 2021. So it kind of concerns me, in regards to, how much can we possibly play him year one? And that goes along with my last guy on the list here, Myjai Sanders. Myjai. Anyway, yeah, Myjai. It's the same type of thing with him as well. Needs some work defending the run. His weight fluctuated at Cincinnati. Went from 230 to 255. So he's kind of bouncing around in the weight. That's not a huge concern because you can obviously get into the NFL program, get yourself, some help with your weight management. I'd say it's probably better that he's underweight and maybe needs to add a little bit of bulk. His top speed, in the report that I read, he can reach top speed in 2 steps. So he's got incredible acceleration and incredible burst in his first few steps there. So that's pretty rare. One thing that I did not read, that just a small takeaway from me, and if I'm saying something that you don't agree with, let me know. Thought his production was pretty minimal considering the awesome secondary that they had at Cincinnati. He played 14 games last year, and he had 2.5 sacks and only 7.5 tackles for a loss. I feel like with Ahmad Sauce Gardner back there, with Kobe Bryant back there, you'd think he'd make, some more plays. Yeah, I know, man, the fadeaway. You would think that he would have gotten a little bit more production, especially in his last year. He was on an upwards climb from sophomore to junior year, and then it just kind of flattened out there in that last year. So I actually think he might slide a little bit in the draft. Maybe just a little bit. Not a lot. Nothing crazy. But I think he might slide a little bit. Just my take. James, you want to go?
Sure. All right. So 6, I had Trayvon Walker from Georgia. And from kind of edge-wise, right, sometimes you bet on the traits, right? And so you're looking at an exceptional athlete that has the length, has the size. And he also matched with the production. I know he was on a Georgia defense that was pretty historic, but 7 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks. It matches up there where you bet on the traits, and overall the prospect is high on his list for edge position as a whole. 7, I have Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. John, you said it, monster season, the 18 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks. Has the pass rush moves in his toolbox there. 8, Boye Mafe. I said that correct, right?
You did.
All right, cool. Disruption, obviously the Senior Bowl, the entire week, the Senior Bowl game as well. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of film out there on him, and he got better over his career, which is not a knock on a player. That is a good thing that he continued to improve. Not everyone is dominant from day one, and being dominant from day one does not mean you all of a sudden, will be a star in the NFL. So he's getting better. His stock is rising. I have him at number 8. I have Myjai Sanders as number 9. What turned me off with him, and maybe
I know Paul where you're going here. Go ahead.
He can put me in my place with this one here, but I wasn't all that impressed with him in the run game. And Evan Neal, and really a lot of what I watched for Myjai Sanders in the run game was against Evan Neal, and he kind of put a number on Myjai, in my opinion. Anyway, he did make more impact plays when he was over the right tackle against Alabama in that bowl game in the college football playoff. But ultimately, you may see more guys in the NFL like an Evan Neal type. And I thought he could have been a little bit more sturdy in the run game. So it turned me off just a little bit there. But not to say my mind can't be changed if there are other facts out there. But from just what I saw, and I did some work with, Ahmad Gardner there. So I didn't really see what I wanted to see in the run game, but he did have a great Senior Bowl week, so that's good. And I'm not trying to knock the guy. I mean, to be the ninth, best in anything is kind of pretty sweet, especially when you're talking about football here. And then number 10, I have Kingsley and Enagbari. I don't know how to say it.
I think it's just Enegbar.
Enegbar.
I think so.
A bigger, kind of a bigger player at 261 was what he weighed in at the Senior Bowl. Has the production, and I do think he could be that presence on the edge there. So I did leave out Drake Jackson, and I only did that because, to be completely honest, I don't really know much about him. It's not a player that I've looked into really kind of extensively there. So. I did leave him off the list, but he's like that guy where when you do a mock draft, he's always available in the second round, and you're like, hey, do I take him with the pick because we haven't filled the edge spot yet? But no one really knows kind of what, anything, too much about him there. So I just kind of left him off my list because I didn't have much information on him altogether.
Before you go, Paul, can you talk a little bit about Sanders? I'm not saying that we're right and you're wrong. I genuinely actually am seriously interested in what you think about him. So just talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, like I said, obviously, he was, what do I have on my list? He was number 4 on my list. So he's not this perfect transcendent prospect that has no holes in his game. And I think Grant, I could kind of see the comment here a little bit about the Alabama game being weird. I've had other people say similar things, and they got on the highlight reel for the wrong reason during that game. And I know a lot of people, every time I go, my Giant Sanders, they're like, and then I'm like, okay, shut up. So, again, we all have those moments. But, for me, as a player, for a lot of these players on this list, I just see the glimpses, the flashes, and I'll talk about that in some of the 6 through 10. And then I see the flashes, and then I say, okay, if the coaches can do A, B, and C, I think those flashes can turn from flashes to consistency, can turn from just a pop to reality. And that's what I see with my Jai. Now, again, there's bugaboos. There's black marks on the resume. There's the lack of some key statistics especially when not just the secondary for Cincinnati, the entire defense was really, really good. So, again, I get it. He disappeared. There's invisibility. And then you're seeing the pop in the Senior Bowl, and some people are scared that the Combine Warrior effect is that you get the pop in one of these college all-star games or events, and then they don't. A great example is Chuma Edoga. Again, he had questions about work ethic and heart and everything at USC, and then at the Senior Bowl, I had Jim Nagy on my show. We're flex, and so I had him on the show, right? And then, that he said Chuma Edoga was his practice player of the week. So then all of a sudden people start changing their tune. Oh, wait, maybe that was all fluke then. And then obviously he hasn't really worked out in the NFL. So I think there are pops, and you have to trust the film, you have to trust the tape, and you have to trust your belief. And really there's almost a swagger factor from the coaches that, and this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I'll just say it, right? There's the thought, right? This happens in life where someone will go to a strip club. I know anytime you start off with that, that's going to go in the wrong place. But you go to a strip club, and that guy always thinks, I can save that person. I can put them on the right path. I can fix this. That's the thought with a lot of these players, that coaches have this swagger, and it's like when a first rounder gets cast off somewhere, and then they look at the guy and say, oh, I know they messed it up, but I can fix it. That's the mentality. And that's the same thing I have with my Jai Sanders and several players on this list, quite frankly, where it doesn't equate to he had double-digit sacks every year of his career. He's a superstar. While it doesn't always equate to that, I see the glimpses, and I think he can translate. Long story short.
Yeah, no worries. I really did just want to hear what you thought on him. It doesn't mean anything. So let's hear your 6 through 10. Speed it up a little bit, will you?
All right, let's go. 2 minutes go here. Okay, number 6, Boye Mafe. I've talked a lot about him. He's a favorite of mine. He's been a favorite of mine pre-draft process, and now I think a lot of people, especially the rest of the NFL, are all catching up on how really talented he is and the upside that he has. He's number 6 on my board. Number 7 is Jermaine Johnson. He's making this meteoric rise, but I think people are kind of fooled a little bit. So we're talking about this with my Giants haters. I think we're having it with Jermaine Johnson, where people are missing the flaws because they're just in love with the pops of the Senior Bowl. And I think there's some flaws in this game that, again, every player isn't perfect, but I think we're overlooking. I don't think he's as refined as people says he is, but I think he's there at number 7. And number 8, I'll go with the guy that John also disrespected, Drake Jackson. And he was talking about this guy. And I want to say that this is this interesting piece of clay, and we use the unrefined term that I just used, that, again, people believe that once they get him in the building, they will be able to work with him. And he had, obviously, the late season injury as well. So the injury during the season. So you got to keep that in mind. But I think, again, screw scheme, screw this, trust the player, trust your ability to coach. And I think you can make a player out of him. Trayvon Walker, versatility, Georgia defense, need I say more? He's great. And then number 10, I don't think a guy either of you mentioned, Tyreek Smith out of Ohio State. He's an interesting, super interesting guy that I really like. And there's a lot of flashes, but the weird thing is that the pressure rate and the advanced metrics don't really give him the same head nod that other pass rushers have gotten higher on this list. So maybe that's a concern in terms of consistency on tape, but he's a guy that I think is an interesting dart throw.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Anybody, if you guys want to throw in your, not necessarily all 10 of your top 10 edge rushers, but any edge rushers that you feel like we didn't give enough credit to. I was rude to a couple of myself, so if there's anybody out there that you feel like we didn't mention that's worth mentioning, feel free to throw it in the chat. We're going to move to a 3-round, and I think this might actually be our last week doing 3-round mock drafts. I think we're going to try to do a 7-rounder next week. I don't know how you feel about that one, James, but we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to go to this mock simulator that you recommended. So if it's a terrible mock, James, it's on you, buddy.
Just blame it on me.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's name this mock, because that's a cool feature. You can name your own mock. And I'm going to hit, where's that start button? Holy moly.
Do you have to clap twice?
You are currently not signed in. What the heck is this stuff? All right, hold on. We're okay. Joe, don't panic. All right, let me go to my present screen here. Where is she? There she is. Okay, we get to see some people working out. That's an ad. That's nice.
Oh, nice.
Let's go to the Jets. We're going to do 2022 3-round mock.
Okay.
Why does it keep saying that? You're not signed in. What is this horse manure? Oh, wait, start draft. We're good.
Start draft. There you go. Yeah, look.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how to use the internet. All righty. So, wow, this is a very strange mock.
Wow, look at that.
We see the two top edge rushers go in the first 2 picks.
Okay.
And then we see Ikem Ekwonu going at the 3rd spot ahead of Evan Neal. Oh, James, you're not on our screen.
He is in spirit.
We will add you.
I'm the voice in the back.
So for all of these for all of you in this stream right now who are watching, go ahead and throw in players that you would like to see taken at this 4th overall pick. We are going to, without a doubt, trade back from 10. But what are your thoughts right now as we look at, what's happened in the top 3? What are you leaning towards? I'll go to you, Paul, first, since James' face is not on here quite yet.
That's okay. Evan goddamn Neal is the pick here, my man. So, oh, wow. We got double John going on. Nice.
Well, you got a problem with that?
Oh, there we go. Hey, man. Hey, more John, the better. That's what I always say about the thing. So, yeah, I'm going Evan Neal here. Again, I think regardless of the combination, this is how I see it anyway, is that the top 4 players in some order, unless something crazy happens, you have like Kyle Hamilton going number 3, which is possible. But I think it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, and the 2 tackles, Ickey and Evan Neal. I think those are the first 4 picks. Again, outside of Kyle Hamilton, craziness at number 3. So in this case, playing the BPA off the board, I think Evan Neal is clearly the pick here.
Okay, James.
Yeah, I agree with Paul. If it falls this way, Evan Neal has the versatility as well to be able to plug in and also have the ability to long-term play tackle. I would go with Evan Neal if this is how the board falls. I mean, I know the Derek Stingley Jr. It's such an interesting topic with him. You just wish there was potentially more consistency there. It's a name that's it is really hard to pass up on because of the talent that he possesses. It's just, what are we going to see and how healthy can he be there? So, I mean, he's not my cornerback one, but ultimately it is still a very, very hard name to look at that number 4 spot. But Evan Neal would be the pick for me.
Yep. There's a lot of people, and again, it's every friggin' week. Everybody is screaming for Hamilton, and I can't get myself there. I don't ever foresee me wanting to do this at 4 ever. Rob V is saying let's trade down. I'm gonna say no to trading down. I'm gonna be a mean guy tonight. I don't see a reason why someone would be
Who's coming up?
Right. And again, we could be all wrong here. Maybe somebody's absolutely head over heels in love with Evan Neal. Maybe somebody's really head over heels for Kyle Hamilton. Again, I don't see that type of a move though in the top 5 this year. I just don't. No disrespect, Rob. And again, if that presented itself in this scenario, I'm trading back every single time. If we get that opportunity, I'm trading back. Kev Chada, excuse me. He says trade down. Neal is Becton's clone, with his weight issues. In high school, he played at 390 pounds. Is that a fact? That would be incredible if that's the case.
Yeah, I had not heard that, but
that is one big.
I had not heard that either.
That's one big friggin' high schooler if that's the case. Yeah. I don't know, man. We're not trading out of this spot. I'm seeing a ton of Hamilton. Look at this. Look at this. Watch. Hamilton.
Are they just saying their favorite Broadway play? Is this the wrong stat?
That must be what it is. Okay, sorry guys. Wow. I thought we were drafting, not doing a musical here. James, you want to say something?
I mean, I don't know if cross-town rivals, same stadium teams would, potentially pull a trade here, but I wonder what the value is really just to move down 1 spot. If the Giants see Icky go and potentially know that we have an interest in an Evan Neal type of prospect at the O-line spot, and they're really, really interested in trying to get that offensive line shored down now that, Andrew Thomas looked a little bit better. They could put, an Evan Neal at right tackle and kind of really help Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, that whole deal. I wonder what the compensation would be to simply just move down 1 pick, and then you kind of revisit it at the 5 spot of kind of what you got there. But I don't know if the value would be worth potentially not passing or potentially passing on Evan Neal there.
That is an interesting thing that I have not thought about. So if one of the tackles goes in the top 3, which I think is definitely going to happen, would the Giants be willing to just flip picks and just to make sure they land the guy? So maybe the Jets don't trade back, because the Carolina Panthers could be interested in an offensive tackle. So there could be like a little competition there. I mean, maybe that's definitely a possibility. And I never really thought about that. Maybe the Giants at 5 say to themselves, we do not want to miss out on Ikem or Evan Neal.
Right.
I hadn't thought about that. What do you think about that, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the trade a couple years ago when a young John Lynch, I believe that was his first year as the GM, swahoodled the Bears into switching, going from 3 to 2. And they thought John Lynch was an idiot. Like, oh, man, this young GM that I'll take advantage of. And obviously they didn't. He picked up the 3rd, 4th, 3rd, a bunch of picks. For 1 spot down, they got their guy, which I believe was Solomon Thomas in that draft. So, didn't really work out for their side. But they got the combination of picks. If you can get, multiple parts of day 2 picks and day 3 picks, that may be a no-brainer if you're open to it. If Neal is this transcendent prospect that you don't want to pass up, then you just shut up and take him. But that could be a mini bidding war between Giants, Panthers, who could both use offensive line help, and thus the Jets could benefit.
And Joe, you're not wrong. Everybody in this chat is pretty much in agreement. Everybody wants Hamilton. A bunch. There's not just a. I mean, there's a couple of people saying that Neil scares them because of the weight. I don't know. What you James, you know more about it. You got the Bama stink. Tell me a little bit about Evan
Yeah,
Neal and his weight.
yeah. Unless I'm missing. I mean, he's a big dude. He's gonna hover around that 360, 365. But I don't see it as a weight issue, especially kind of the things that he can do athletically. I don't know if it's hey, we also have another tackle with a really high number on the scale, and we've kind of, gone through this offseason where people have questioned his weight. Now we just don't want a guy that has a number that high also, because that will turn into a weight issue. I haven't really seen anything Evan Neal wise that the weight is a big issue for him. But yeah, so that's kind of new to me there. I know he's a big guy, but he is built athletically to do some things that guys at that size just aren't able to ultimately do there. So I don't know if it's a Mekhi Becton scaring us off a little bit here, but yeah, and he's consistently played for 3 years for Alabama at different spots across the offensive line without any issue there. So I'm kind of curious if that's maybe just a Mekhi Becton kind of scaring us off here.
It's unbelievable, some of the comments. I don't think we've talked enough about Evan Neal, and if then that's the case, because there are a lot of people talking about Evan Neal the same way they talk about Becton. They are not in favor of drafting him. I wasn't expecting that. I thought we were gonna go ahead and take the man, but I think there might be a legitimate, like, everybody's gonna unsubscribe or something. Like, I gotta defend my channel here. If I don't take who these guys want, there might be a mass exodus. If Hamilton is generational, why wouldn't you take him? Oh, well, I think we're gonna have to, because everybody wants him.
Okay, let's do it.
So we will take Kyle Hamilton. If you do not like that draft pick, I do apologize.
Blame the fans.
What'd you say?
I said blame the fans.
Yeah, I personally don't like it. And generational is a term that is thrown out a lot. And so I'm not sitting here saying he's not a great football player, but I just don't know if we're at that point. Kind of like when we were talking about Mr. Linderbaum. I don't know if we're at the point where we can start drafting safeties and centers in the first four, top 4 and top 10. Just don't think we're there yet. Dennis Montalvo, he says, is there anyone in this chat that's competent? Well, we can have a war if we want. I mean, I guess that's what we can do. This is the thing. We are still months literally away from the draft. So it's only just beginning. And here's Jared. He says, because Hamilton isn't generational.
Ooh, yikes.
It's gonna be verbal warfare for a long time for us. Okay, let's go back to this mock. Evan Neal went the pick right after, so James, you're on to something there. Maybe the Giants could consider a flip there of 4 and 5. I would be into that. Charles Cross to the Panthers, another team that's thirsty for an offensive lineman. That is 3 offensive tackles in 4 picks in a row, and also 3 offensive tackles in the top 6. Ahmad Gardner to the Falcons. I don't know if I really see that happening. And then Ajabo, your boy, Mr. Esden. And then we're back on the clock at pick 10. And let's go to all, because that's what we want. Kenny Pickett, do we want to start over at quarterback? Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is available. Traylon Burks is available. Nakobe Dean is available. Devin Lloyd is available. A lot of people talk about Jermaine Johnson at 10. He is available. There's a bunch of names here. Pretty much the whole draft is ours to be had. Derek Stingley. I'm not really keen on taking cornerback and safety here. But what do you, ooh, sorry, I made it disappear. Let's make that reappear. What are you two gentlemen feeling right now? I'm going to go to you guys first, and then we'll go to the chat. Boys and girls in the chat, go ahead and load it up. Tell me who you want. James, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
No. The one thing I just want to say, and that'll be interesting, obviously, doing this on, February 16th, is that with the NFL Combine in the first week of March, I'll be interested to see how Stingley develops, because obviously we all remember the 15-0 year, Joe Burrow, everybody, and how great Stingley was with the 6 picks and everything else. And obviously it's been injuries and a lot of MIA since. But how does he speak in the private interviews at the Combine? How does he test and all those factors? Like, all of that to me will depend whether, because like there is a scenario where at 10 I'd be okay with Sauce Gardner. Now maybe not if the first pick is Kyle Hamilton. I'm not sure about double dipping in the secondary, but there's a conversation we had if you go Thibodeau or offensive line at 4 to come back at 10 and go Sauce Gardner. I'd be open to that. But Stingley, with all the questions that we don't have answers to right now, I'm not comfortable taking Stingley. I think he has to fall. So I just wanted to bring up one name that I would not be enthralled with taking, especially with Hamilton at 4. I don't see us taking Stingley at 10.
Yeah, I would agree. And we are going to move back from this pick. I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say with who's on the board. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I agree with you both as well. If we go Hamilton at 4, then I think, you have to throw the secondary aside for pick 10 or whatever else you decide to do in the first round there. Garrett Wilson is got to be on that list for me. You add a playmaker on defense with Hamilton at 4, and then you come back and you add a playmaker for your quarterback at 10. So a guy like that would have to be on that list there for me. And of course, flavor-wise, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong if you wanted to make a Drake London that pick, or if you like the Traylon Burks makeup, that's fine too. I think all 3 guys are within that same category almost. It's just a matter of they do things pretty different. And so what are you looking for there? And so preferably for me, if we're going to go wide receiver at that spot, I do really like Garrett Wilson at the 10th spot.
Okie dokie. Cali Jets, he is a known USC supporter. But he loves Drake London there at 10.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall Jr. And he does have some of that in him. He has a little bit of that after the catch physicality that Brandon Marshall was known for. We planned this last week. We are going to trade back. And again, it's not necessarily what will happen or what we want to happen, but we want to see the scenario play out. That's what these mocks are all about anyways. Are you guys okay with jumping back to 18 with the Saints? Let's just put in this scenario that the Saints want to move up for a quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. And give us Marshawn Lattimore, right? Isn't that the deal?
And then I want Danielle Hunter after that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Calvin Ridley after that.
All right, so I don't know how this works, but I think I put their picks in. So we are going to grab 18, 49, and they're going to get 10. Is there anything else we should be asking for?
100%. Give me a 2023 third rounder.
Is that okay with you, James? You like that?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, now what's interesting, and I don't think I noticed this, the trade is in the green right now. So this actually gives you a little bit of like a calculator, which I really like. If we take their third in the future, it starts to skew, I guess, towards us.
What happens when you want to trade up. It skews towards us, pal.
So it looks like they will not accept that.
Well,
and
I'm
going down.
Hang up the phone.
Well, since it's a future pick and we're not going to be able to use it, are we okay with just doing the second rounder for this mock?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Okay.
No,
all right. Cool.
Not at all.
So they did take a quarterback, which is cool for this mock because at least it is, sort of what we're going for here. Let's review who's gone, and then we will make a pick here. And guys, again, normally we would fight for every pick we could possibly get, but for the sake of the mock, just being able to see what we could get with another second round pick, that's what we're kind of going for here. Okay, Garrett Wilson did go 11. Kenny Pickett went 10. Derek Stingley went 12. Traylon Burks, I think that's a really cool fit for the Browns. They need a wide receiver. Linderbaum to the Ravens. Jamison Williams, another wide receiver from Alabama, to the Eagles. Nakobe Dean. Jordan Davis to the Chargers. They could definitely use some help on the interior stopping the run. So a lot of this actually looks pretty legit. I actually like this simulator, James. Nice job.
And that leaves us Drake London still at 18, no?
It leaves us Drake London. Chris Olave is there as well. Let's take a look at the board, though, not just talk about wide receivers. So Drake London is there. Devin Lloyd is available.
Ooh.
Chris Olave is there. If you want a cornerback, Andrew Booth Jr. is there. Jermaine Johnson. I think that would be something I could get behind. I don't know about if I love double defense in round 1. Let's go to the chat. We got a couple of people already throwing it in here. Devin Lloyd. Oh, wow. He says, Robbie V is saying we would have to take Linderbaum if this scenario played out.
Wait, didn't he already go?
I think I think he did. He went, let's see. He went
to the Ravens.
Yep, to
14.
the Ravens at 14. Yep. So, Paul, what do you feeling?
I think Drake London is probably the pick here. Another one you didn't mention, Trevor Penning, is a guy the Jets like a lot who has offensive line versatility. I'm probably going offense here after going defense early. So it's either Trevor Penning or Drake London to me.
Okay. We've got Lloyd in here. Burnt Dice is saying Lloyd as well. Kenyon Green gets a vote. Joe Campione is saying go defense. London is not a fit. What are your? I've heard I've heard James talk about it. I think that we're on the same wavelength here. The offense does seem to favor guys that are more technicians in the route running, department. But I don't necessarily sit here and say no way to London. I don't buy that at all. What's your stance on it, Paul?
I mean, I've heard people say that about it, but I will repeat the same thing that I said for defense with scheme. Like, he's off the board. He can't fit. Then fire yourself as a coach. If you can't figure it out, then you don't deserve the job. So offense, Drake London. If you look at him as a coaching staff, say, doesn't really fit. That square peg doesn't fit my round hole offense. Coaches should adapt to the players and the talent that they have on the roster. So to just throw Drake London out because he doesn't fit whatever Mike LaFleur is specifically looking for, Miles Austin on this particular thing or this particular thing. To me, Drake London is a baller, and I want ballers on my football team. Maybe we should start with having good football players instead of being picky about, I don't know if this guy fits his scheme. Like, come on, suck it up, people. Strap it on.
I'm in that same mindset. I really do think it's it's interesting. Again, this is just one of my favorite topics of the offseason is this wide receiver class because people are really, really against it. They're either in love with him and they think he should be absolutely in consideration, and then there's people who say, do not draft him, do not draft him, do not draft him. It's been pretty much 50-50, which I expected. London is going to be a bum. Don't draft London. And then people are saying, no, London, easy choice. So it's literally that polar opposite take that I expected. Let's go ahead and let's be nice to the non-London people. And do we want to consider an offensive lineman at this spot? We didn't take one at 4.
Trevor Penning.
Trevor Penning is available. And we also have Mr. Zion Johnson. Kenyon Green is available as well. What do you think, James? If we're going to go offensive line here, who would you like?
Yeah, Kenyon Green is up there. Zion Johnson too, but
you want London?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. And we've talked about it, and Paul, kind of nailed it too. And scheme wise, I don't know. What is this? We just can't use a 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver who can get up and win one-on-one matchups in the red zone. Like if we can't use that on our offense, then Mike LaFleur talked about it. They all talked about it, right? We try to say, okay, San Francisco looks like that, so we're gonna look exactly the same. Like these guys put their different spins on it. Ultimately they want to get guys in positions to win and bring out what they do best. And one of the things for Zach is he needs a big target. He needs a big target that can win those one-on-one matchups. May not look like separation because he's not running past somebody, but in those jump ball situations, the back shoulder situations, Drake London can go up and get it. So London would be up there for me, considering we just traded back and he's still there. But if you wanted to go the offensive line spot, I think Kenyon Green would be, a solid pick for the, to step in and play right away at right guard.
I'm having a hard time making a choice for us, so I'm going to create a poll. We've got a lot of people in here. By the way, we have 60 people in here. If you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, would really appreciate that. It would mean a lot to me and to the people that watch this channel, and it helps to grow the channel. So please hit that like button. Let's go ahead and let's put a bunch of names in here. We're going to say who you got. We're going to do Lloyd as one option because that's a name I saw a lot of. We're going to put London in here as well. We'll put Green, and we'll put Penning. And there you go. The poll is up, guys, and I will let you guys choose whoever it is. Wild Wave says, damn, we should have never traded. Honestly, I think we're going to really like the way this draft turns out based on what we get in the second round. It's going to be a massive haul in the second round. Go ahead and vote, though. It's in the chat right now. So Devin Lloyd, Drake London, Kenyon Green of Texas A&M, or Trevor Penning. While we're waiting for that poll to go, it's your boy, Mr. Paul Esden. Any concerns about the number of penalties that he was committing in college? Because it's concerning to me.
Who is that?
Trevor Penning. I think he led the nation. I think he led the nation in penalties committed.
Yeah, I think the concern that, and that kind of stretches the senior bowl, although I think he was overcompensating a little because it was a national spotlight, is the throwing of guys and the extra nasty. I think some of that is real, but it's kind of social media tough guy. Everyone talks a big game and then they do a little something. So I think in that spotlight and being a small school guy, I think he was trying to flex, and I think he was trying to, impress coaches, and obviously it worked. I mean, you got some hubbub from fellow players that he was tossing around, but I think a lot of teams noticed him, so it worked. But with that, I think there is an unruliness. I think there is a lack of refinement there for him that he tries to make up for with intensity and things he can control. But I think he does have a little bit of a long way to go. So those are fair concerns. The penalty concerns are fair. The throwing guys into your quarterback, you always have to watch that. And again, imagine if the Mekhi Becton roll-up could have been thrown into Zach Wilson. Like, that happened several times with Greg Van Roten. Although he just got blown up as opposed to getting chucked in the back. But those are fair concerns, 100%.
All right, we are going to go with the pick. It is pretty skewed towards Kenyon Green right now. He is leading it, so we are going to make him the other first-round pick at pick 18. And again, I mean, you can say what you want about Kyle Hamilton, not liking that pick. Those are pretty good football players. We've gotten better. I know that Mr. 64KJ over there is not feeling too good about life right now with no Drake London and no Garrett Wilson. I'm kind of with you. I feel like I would have probably gone playmaker there. But we talked about the depth of the wide receivers. Maybe there's going to be some guys that we like. And again, that's kind of why we're doing this. These scenario-based type of drafts. Drake London fell to 22. Wow. Jermaine Johnson got drafted at 23. Devin Lloyd went 26. Jahan Dotson was the guy I was kind of hoping would be there. He's gone. Chris Olave is there, guys.
Just make the pick.
I really don't think we need to discuss this one. We have 3 wide receivers on our roster right now. We don't have a whole lot of dudes. And so sitting here February 15th, 16th, yeah, Dotson did go, but again, Olave might be the best wide receiver the best route running wide receiver. Wait, he's gone? What did I miss it?
Is he gone?
I didn't see his name. Oh, he did. Mother F. He went to the Patriots.
Wow.
Great.
Thanks for lying, John.
That's a punch to the crotch, man. Dang, I thought that was a steal right there. All right, so he's gone.
I guess that would have been.
Trey McBride is available. Edge rushers, we've got Arnold Ebiketie, Kingsley Enegbar, my boy. Cameron Thomas is available. Drake Jackson is there. Just taking a look here. Zion Johnson is there, but we already took an offensive lineman. We're not going to double dip on the interior guard spot. Cornerback, Khair Elam. Linebackers, Quay Walker, Christian Harris is available. So it's definitely all over the place as far as where we could go. I wouldn't hate a David Bell pick here with Purdue, but I think a lot of people are going to want McBride. So let's just quickly, we'll go real fast. Like, who would you take in this scenario? Paul, what would you consider?
Feed the fans, McBride.
McBride. Paul, I'm sorry, not Paul. James.
McBride.
James, who would you take?
Yeah, I would take McBride. We got to start with the weapons here.
Yeah, you're getting angsty. I can tell. 64 KJ don't play. He wants that money. And I kind of agree here. Let's see. We do still have 38 and 49 in the second round, and again, that's kind of the benefit. Terrence says let's get a tight end later. Kev Chatta says let's get an edge. Christian Harris, somebody said as well. Nobody agrees with us ever in these mock drafts. I feel like we are we are always in the minority, which is crazy. I feel like, but it is what it is. We're gonna treat ourselves. We're gonna take a player of our choosing, and it sounds like we want to get some weapons. So let's go ahead and let's make Trey McBride the pick here. We'll draft our tight end. He's the best one available, and we got him. All right, we're at pick 38 now, and pretty much the board is similar to what it was when we just were on the clock. We already have our safety, so we're not going to go there. Linebacker could be had, an edge. I think maybe an edge rusher would be good here, or a wide receiver. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say let's stick to edge or wide receiver here. So the wide receivers are David Bell, George Pickens that I would consider here. And then edge-wise, I feel like there's still a couple of names here. Like Arnold Ebiketie would be really interesting. Like he doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to be a starter year one. He can be a situational pass rusher. I keep saying it. John Abraham was used as a situational pass rusher his rookie year. Why not do that? I don't see any problems with that. Of course, Joe Grana says, let's get Muma. I love Muma, but I think we might be able to snag him with the next second rounder. Joe Grana says Pickens. I kind of agree here. Let's get a wide receiver here. I like George Pickens. What do you think, Paul?
It's either George Pickens or Boye Mafe for me.
And he is there. Paul. Jeez, I've done that twice.
Boye Mafe and George Pickens.
James.
I'd be good. I'd be good with a Pickens pick. I think he's got some serious potential there. He does have a little bit of an injury history. He tore his ACL not all that long ago. I would be good with David Bell as well. I think he's underrated in the route running category in this class. And it has to be between wide receiver and edge here. Ebiketie would be up there for me, but also fine with Boye Mafe. So Pickens, Bell, Ebiketie or Mafe there for me is good.
Alrighty. I'm seeing some names. It's Mafe. It's Edge at 38. Pickens. Let's do an Edge. Let's take your boy, Boye Mafe. He's climbing the boards. He might even potentially go earlier than this, or at least in this range.
Sure.
Frank is saying let's take the Penn State guy. If it were me, I would probably take him, but I'm gonna be kind to my guests because I'm a kind host. We're gonna take Boye. We're gonna take Boye Mafe. We still have pick 49. We can go get a wide receiver. David Bell just got taken right before our pick, which sucks.
George Pickens?
David Bell got picked, but George Pickens is available.
Boom. Pickens.
I feel like that's a pretty good value pick right there.
Yep.
For the sake of the evening, because it's getting a little late on us here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take George Pickens as well. And then we will have our 3rd round pick as well. And that'll conclude. Terrence says we're reaching a lot here.
Ooh, Muma went.
Yeah. And let's see where he went. Muma went 64. I really like Muma. There was some people talking about how he didn't perform well at the Senior Bowl practices. Maybe that's the case. But in the game, I thought I saw, some pretty good playmaking ability. Stopping the run and also getting in the way of some passes as well. I really like Chad Muma a lot. All right, let's take a look at who's available. We do need to get a wide receiver here. Christian Watson's available.
Didn't we just take Pickens?
Oh, did we?
Yeah,
we did. I apologize. I'm sorry. Yep.
I'm not afraid to take another wide receiver. I like the cut of your jib there, John.
I have no problem with double dipping. Let's see here. Let me go to the chat. This mock is going to get a Z. Wilson is
awesome. Nice.
Zach Wilson with more sacks. Well, we did take a guard in the first round.
Who's BPA right now?
BPA. Let's take a look. Isaiah Spiller. A couple of quarterbacks. We already have a tight end. Brandon Smith is a name that I keep mentioning as a linebacker. Jalen Pitre is available. That might actually be pretty good move. Although, and here's the problem: we took a safety in the 4th overall pick.
Well, we need 2, so.
Oops, that's my channel. Sorry. Let's go to this.
Yeah. Good to see. We need 2, so why not?
What do you think, James?
I like Jalen a lot. He is around the football a lot. I've seen Sean Ryan's name get thrown around there kind of a couple times recently too. He's the tackle for UCLA. Could be maybe a value offensive tackle pick in the 3rd round there since we went guard. But I think there's quite a few options here. We've already filled safety, the guard, tight end, edge, wide receiver. We went in a lot of different directions. So I could see a Jalen Pitre pick here, but I wouldn't throw Sean Ryan's name to the curb either. I think it might be a value offensive line pick there.
All right. Anthony Coleman, reluctantly we took him. We had no choice. And maybe next week we'll do similar to what we did this week. We will refuse to draft Kyle Wilson next week, kind of like what we're doing with this trial of, taking a trade back.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are clamoring for a linebacker here. Here are the linebackers that are available. There's not a whole lot there. Best player available, Isaiah Spiller, if we want to get another running back. I have not looked at him a whole lot. If he were available in the 3rd round, that would be interesting, but I just don't see it for our offense. What do you guys think? Position-wise, James, what position you want to go?
I would like to go. Can you pull up the corner spot real quick?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Josh Jobe.
Kobe.
Kobe Bryant.
Not a Josh Jobe guy to be honest. I know he's an Alabama guy, but not there for me. Kobe Bryant would be a nice value pick in this 3rd round here. I think he's had himself a nice little career there at Cincinnati, and then had a great Senior Bowl week. I would put Kobe Bryant up on that list.
All right. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, he'd be an MVP for me, a multi-time MVP. That's what Kobe Bryant would be for me. Yeah.
All right. We will probably just go ahead and, we already took a tight end, so I will show you our players that we've selected, and then I think we're going to make the pick. So how do I do that? How do I show them the picks that we've made? Oh, my selections. That's easy enough. So here's our draft so far. We've taken a safety, an interior offensive lineman, tight end, edge, and wide receiver. I actually like this draft. Aside from the Hamilton pick, I actually do like the players that we've landed. They're all guys that I think could make a big impact. Year 1, I think they would have a chance to help the team out. Rob V is in agreement. Frank Pagan is in agreement. Anthony Coleman is in agreement. We are going to make Kobe Bryant a New York Jet. And that will conclude the 3-round mock draft, and the results are on the screen right there. That's it. And again, guys, if you don't mind, hit that like button on the way out. Really appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out with us. This was a longer stream for us. We don't usually stay on for 2.5 hours. Paul, thank you a million. I actually did mean midstream, I put your YouTube channel in the description. Guys, if you're watching this, please go ahead and consider checking out his channel. Great YouTube content. And again, this is a guy who does have some nice connections here. He's getting in touch with some really cool people. So check his channel out. Paul, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Want to let you know I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I appreciate you doing that midstream. I've never done anything that productive midstream. So thank you very much, man. Appreciate you.
No worries. We'll have you back on if you'd love to come back. James, thanks as always for coming on. And that's it, man. Go Jets. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. And that'll be that. Go Jets.
Have a good night. Thanks, Paul.
Have a great night. Word from my daughter. Go Jets. See you guys next time.